Lord, tell
what are we
it
doing?
on the mountain, Jesus Christ is born. What are we doing? We're doing a podcast. Blake, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Dan, you need to stop waking me up.
I know. I need to stop giving you NyQuil, mixing that in with your OJ.
My eggnog.
Why does this eggnog look a little red? There was a phenomenon back in the day when I first started working at my cable news job 20 years ago where people used to call it robo-chugging. I never did it myself, but it was a kind of way of getting drunk quick where you would just take some NyQuil and you'd shotgun it really quick. And, of course, you'd get, like, drunk and, a little crazy, and then you'd just pass out. And I think it was like a cheap man's way of getting drunk or getting
good times. I don't know how cheap is that though. A NyQuil's probably like $20. You can get
that's true. I guess you're right. It's like why just not buy some like Night Train or something? But
get some grain alcohol. You probably
I don't know what the
spend
benefit
a fraction
was
of the cost for a bottle of NyQuil.
Yeah, very good point. I don't know why you would want to spend $20 on look at this, I got some, it's like not even the generic. You didn't get like the Pathmark special. You got like, I got the high-end stuff. Anyway, NyQuil and robo-chugging. Drop it. So, Christmas time is here again.
Christmas time is here.
Blake sings all the hits. Such as Feliz Navidad. I want to wish you. We should take the podcast on the road. Why don't we do a collection of shows around the country where we sing Christmas?
Like a cabaret act?
Yeah. We'll set up like a mini bar. We'll set a piano up. Neither one of us really drink that much really anymore, but we'll set up a bar. We'll set up a little piano that neither one of us can really play.
Hey,
we'll come out and,
how did all these people get in my basement?
Oh, yeah. How are you all in my unfinished basement, baby? Are you guys here, too? Well, that would be actually really cool. Like, our set is like a freezer, and whatever else is like a water heater. So, like, at the beginning of every performance is us coming down the stairs like we're getting something out of the freezer for our parents.
Yeah.
Hey, what are you guys doing in our basement? Next to the weight set.
Old wood paneling.
Yeah, in the cobwebs. Don't go through those VHS boxes, baby. I'll be up in a minute, Mom. Yeah, I'll get you your pizza.
Whenever I think about, like in my head, I mean, obviously when we're not doing the show in one of our basements, but in my head when I think about the show,
yeah,
in the mind's eye of where we do the show.
Splinter of mind's eye.
It's your basement at your old house.
Yeah. I remember that house.
The Hamden house.
The old days of the Hamden
Riverside.
House. The old days of us doing all of our activities down in the old house.
Did I make this up in my childlike brain where your wallpaper in that bedroom was like the moon landing?
Well, these are two different things. So there was the basement. So when I
two different rooms.
Yeah. So when I moved back from college, my parents had given my sister the bigger room, which was my room at the time. So I got her smaller room, but then I just started not living in the basement, but I figured it was like a 2-floor difference, so I wouldn't bother them late. So I kind of moved everything from college down there. So
only we could keep your parents up in the basement.
Yeah, only you and I, Blake and I, could keep the parents up by being so loud they can hear us 2 floors up. So that the basement had like the TV, couches, and stuff like that. But what you're indicating is they put an addition on the house when I was like in 5th grade, and they extended the back of the house by like 2 feet. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, or maybe 3 feet, but it gave us much more space in the room. It made the room bigger, and then below that room was the TV room, so it made it like bigger. You know, you're able to. So when they did that, that was in the time of people may remember of mural. You can get those stick-on murals on the wall, and I know nowadays you have those. I forget the name of the damn company, the Smash or whatever they call it. The people are gonna know, but the sports company where you can get those right out, those sticky things on the wall, and you can get like your favorite player, like I was gonna say Wayne Boggs,
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, I'm completely, Don Mattingly. I'm completely Thurman Munson. I'm completely out of the range of what's the popular people of today. But you can get those. I forget those stickers you can get on the wall that are life size. Where like when we were little, we just have the cardboard cutouts, but they used to have these things that were like kind of, you'd measure the size of your wall, and then you'd look and you'd get, it was basically like wallpaper. And it would have directions, and you put it up, and it would be a picture. So like I remember there was New York City skyline, which would have been really cool. There was like baseball field, like from the pitcher's mound or something at some Major League Baseball game. And then the one I had, and I forgot why we ended up getting, maybe because the other one was out, because I would have loved the New York City skyline, was one of the space shuttles sitting in space with the Earth in the background. So it was just like parked out there, and somebody snapped a picture. And I'm pretty sure that spaceship was the Columbia. And that might have been the one that blew up in 2003 on re-entry. February 2003, it was coming in, and something happened. I think that was Columbia. You know what I'm talking about? And it kind of it disintegrated in orbit, coming back in. So that might have been the one I had up in the thing. So I had that for how many years? I don't know, 10 years or so. And then when I got to high school, I was like, I'm growing out of this. I don't need to have this on my wall. So I started covering it with posters of stuff and articles and movies and stuff like that. So by the time you saw it might have been half dash and half covered.
Yeah.
But at the time, my mother was a wallpaper queen. That sounds really dirty. Forget about a BJ queen. My mom was a wallpaper queen. But she could put up wallpaper like nobody's business. She'd be like, you need some wallpaper put up? And she'd like, to come up with open up the card table, the big wallpaper table. So she put all that stuff up. So answer your question. Yeah, I had one of those up, and it was a space, kind of thing. It was cool. I mean, when you're little,
I remember it was
awesome.
cool. I remember when first time I was over, I thinking it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to look, and then the wall it was on, I don't know, it was like a 30 feet wall, like 30, no, not 30, yeah, maybe like 30 feet in length, and then maybe like 8 feet tall. So it was like a big,
it was big,
yeah, it was a big expanse space, so it was pretty cool. And then, that was it. So,
all right.
And then the basement, and then every time you came over with the basement didn't have the carpet, but it used to be a carpeted basement. And we had the big old, the legendary flood of 97 during orientation weekend.
Flood of 97.
Yeah, the old flood of 97 because we were the lowest point on the
USS flag sank.
Oh, man, it sank into some sewage. We were the lowest point on the street. And we had a sewage backup, and the little thing failed. The pipe goes out to the street.
Suck pump.
Yeah, whatever that is. You can open it up and you can get it. When they have to snake it, that failed that connection, and we had an inch of raw sewage in the basement. So my parents threw everything out. They threw all my GI Joes out, threw all my Matchbox cars out, threw out the USS Flag, threw out the Terradrome. Throughout anything that was big enough to be downstairs, my constructs and all that. And then they had to rip up all the carpet. So I didn't know about that because that was orientation weekend. So by the time I got
your
home,
little brother.
They threw my little brother out. We don't talk about him anymore because he was handcuffed into the basement as it is. So by the time you came over, they had to remodel. They had to, put new sheetrock on like the bottom part of the thing, repaint it, and then I think it was like linoleum or something we had on the floor. It was very cold. Like we had to have area rugs everywhere. We had bean bags we had to throw out because remember in the '90s, bean bags were all in. Like you had like a neon green bean bag, a neon blue bean bag. So I had the tournament table. Was that still around when you were there, or did they throw that out? Do you remember the tournament table?
No.
The tournament table was like as big as my coffee table. And, you think it's huge, but it's like a little, for people who might remember this, it was a Fisher Price, I think it was called, and it was for kids. And the tournament table was a pool table that would turn also into a hockey. You could flip it, and then you could play, like, not air hockey, but it was like, it was on foam, so the hockey was smooth. You could play, like, table hockey. And then you could put on top of it 2 things, and you can have ping pong.
Okay.
I
don't remember that.
Oh, okay. So maybe they must have thrown that out at the same time too. So, you'd have, but the pool table wasn't, of course, a regulation size pool table. It was like a kid size pool table. So now I realize in retrospect when I ask, why didn't my dad ever want to always play pool with me? It's because it's hard. It's like playing on a pool, like
I guess it was like 3x2.
Yeah, it's like he could just place the ball into the pocket. But I remember like the commercial for the tournament table and all that was like high end, and we got it that year in 6th grade, and that thing was awesome, bringing people over and playing like ping pong and playing hockey and stuff like that. All right, good night, folks.
Yeah, this was sorry. We apologize.
Along
this
the
was
side,
a completely unplanned conversation about Dion's basement.
My basement
and wallpaper.
Hamden, Connecticut, and wallpapering. Welcome to Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. It's the Christmas edition.
Christmas edition.
Christmas. Well, we were talking about going on a road show. Let us know if you would be interested in seeing us go to various venues and bringing our show on the road.
With our nightclub act.
Yeah, we can come up with a quick nightclub act and have some bands perform, and we talk about, I don't know how the format would be. Would we just talk movies?
I think we'd have to talk about a movie.
Let me tell you something about Care-Bears the movie, kid.
Care-Bears the movie.
Whoa, don't open that book, baby. Or like, Maximum Overdrive, we made you, remember? I don't know. It'd be like really weird throwbacks.
Our tuxes with our ties undone.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to look like Prom. Like, like we'd look like something out of like The Wedding Singer. It would make us more look like we're going,
You don't have to wear those like powder blue ones. We get really nice tuxes.
True. We don't want 7. Yeah, like a nice, like, like it's fitted. And we're doing like Q&A, like, we're throwing out lines. Tell us what movie this is from. Somebody would always get it, Yeah,
I mean, our audience, whatever, if we even give the slightest hint, people will guess.
Yeah,
we just like the act would just be like, I'm thinking of a movie. What is it? And somebody would be like, Remo Williams. Yes, you got it. So.
There's a guy I work with at my day job on cable news, and he works on the business side. So I work at a news channel and a business channel. And he's actually a host now. He's our age, and he's a host on the business channel doing business news. And I've discovered that he is a huge, huge Transformers fan. Knows Transformers the movie by heart. So, in all the turbulent times we're going through these days with everything going on in the world, while I'm miking him up, I'm always like, I'm like, Brian, can you please give me your position on what you think about Unicron coming and encroaching onto the space and Earth, and do you think he needs all the energon cubes? And it becomes very funny because he gives almost like a BBC-ish or like a very accurate assessment of if Unicron, the planet-eating robot, is coming into our world, and what we need to do to take it, and it's comical. And why am I bringing this up? Oh, because talking about movies seriously like this, and some of our most popular movies were Transformers the movie and G.I. Joe the movie, as we discussed.
Well, we were just before we started rolling, we were talking about if we wanted to introduce a video component to the show, what would we do? We could do a movie geek roundtable, very serious, like Dion. Tell me,
like the McLaughlin group. Final answer. Wrong. Next question.
Yeah,
or like Crossfire.
Yeah, but with movies.
We brought a Republican and a Democrat on to talk about Transformers the movie. It's like very, but I don't know what. Yeah, but I mean, I think everyone would readily agree they'd want us on YouTube, but. I mean, we can't bitch and complain because that's what we do all the time. But It's hard. It'd be hard to. We'd have to figure out how we would do it, produce it, put it on there. Do we recycle old stuff we've already done, or do we talk about movies we've done already and redo it, almost like an, a rehash, or do we just rerun the old episode? But then when we do that, we would have to add some sort of video component.
Yeah.
For people, but would people want to watch us like they do nowadays? You see people talking into microphones on YouTube. I don't know.
I wish we had a budget because what I still think what the perfect YouTube show would be is to have somebody build like Muppets of us,
and just listen to us talk,
and just have somebody shoot and mime the Muppets to us.
I don't think you've ever told me this.
Oh, I think I brought it up on at least one of the episodes. So I think the perfect idea.
Are you sure? I mean, that's genius, but
just have puppet versions of us do the show.
Do we have to be humans, or can we be like a dog, or can I be like
Yeah, but I guess we could be adventurous.
Like I could be your Snuffleupagus. Maybe I'm not really alive and I'm in your mind.
Well, I mean, that's that's shooting new dialogue. I'm saying just taking the recordings as is.
Oh, you're talking about using the existing pod. Oh, that's a lot easier. Oh, I thought you meant in conjunction with us doing new material, somebody's there doing the miming.
No, I'm talking to the old material.
Oh, so someone be listening there and someone will have to memorize it.
Take our episode on John Carpenter's The Thing, take the audio, and
then have us.
And do a puppet show to it.
We can always do like the matchstick theater. Remember on MTV Liquid Television, they had the index card theater, whatever that was called. It was stick figure theater, and then they would have like 2 minutes of like stick figures. Like they recreated Night of the Living Dead, or they did like the Hendrix at Woodstock burning the.
Ours would be 3.5 hours.
Of stick figure theater of us talking about. That might be fun. I mean, it'd be cool to have us. I mean, with now with AI and Midjourney and all those things, we could very easily animate something.
I don't know. If anybody wants to take on doing a puppet version of one of the episodes,
but which would be really weird. It'd be very surreal. The background and everything.
Give us a shout. I don't know if we got any puppeteers out there that want to produce the video component of our old episodes.
Meanwhile, we're almost 18 minutes into this first episode, and we've said Merry Christmas.
All right,
and we've gone on so many detours.
All right, let's get on track here.
Welcome to Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. I'm Dion Baya.
And I'm Jay Blake.
And we're back kicking it for 2023 Christmas time. You last heard from us around Halloween time when we had covered such greats as John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness and Tales from the Crypt's Television Terror or Terror Television. Yeah, I'm always saying that backwards. My dyslexia. So we did those. That was a nice little bundle. We were going to try to do something for November, but that got away from us. We missed our anniversary episode. That got away from us. Been very busy. So we figured we'd hit us up at Christmas time and do something before the year.
Close out the year.
Yeah, close it on out. And what better movie to do? And I'm surprised we haven't done this movie yet because there's never really been any talk about holding on to this movie and putting it in our back pocket. Has there?
I don't think so. I mean, Christmas time has always been like your,
domain.
I've always just
defaulted.
Yeah,
what would you like to do?
Handed the reins over to Dion for Christmas.
Yeah, and then I drive the sleigh like a bastard, and Blake always loses his hot cocoa out the side, and he spills his marshmallows all over while we're trying to sing carols. So we're this year actually, we're doing A Christmas Story from 1983. which is
anniversary.
And it's a 40th anniversary. Yeah, how apropos. And it's a big favorite amongst legions of people. And I guess one of the things we could talk about on this podcast episode is I remember back in the day when this wasn't recognized in the annals of history as this big, big thing. And it was almost kind of like the commercialization of just the brainwashing of having this thing on so much on television while television still mattered, that I'd say in the 2000s, maybe mid 2000s or so, you had TBS, you had maybe AMC, you had TNT, you had all these people playing 24, 48 hours. It's like they kind of do this now with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where like during Christmas time at 8 o'clock, every night you'll have National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on, or they're doing this with Elf now, where they'll just play the crap out of A Christmas Story. So I feel like at some point, people, how can you not like Christmas Story at this point? Because they play 24, 48 hours of A Christmas Story. Where when we were little, I certainly don't remember it coming out when the movie came out in the theaters. I really have no recollection of that, but I certainly remember it being on television or me seeing it at the video store and it being played enough on TV, you know, or in the Christmas season that it became a yearly staple for me. And, you know, it got to the point where I remember watching it on Fox 61, which was the local Connecticut Fox affiliate. And I taped it off the TV and having it with the TV bars and it just being a regular movie like you'd watch anything else. You know, and I liked it, you liked it because we were friends, or, I mean, your childhood friends, and you could identify with it because you were of the age. But it wasn't anything more than that. And I kind of feel like not so much in the 90s, but in the 2000s is when it's kind of got its certification of iconic must-watch TV for generations.
Maybe late 90s. I kind of feel like it's really started kicking into hard drive like around the time that we were in college.
Yeah.
Like around Christmas time, it was being aired a ton on TV, and then those 24-hour marathons started. I have I don't know. I feel like I have maybe it's atypical. I would love to hear from you, the listener, if you feel this way about it. I have like a weird relationship with the movie in that I remember seeing it. I think I watched it by myself at my dad's house on cable, you know, maybe not 40 years ago, but pretty close to it. You know, definitely in the 80s. And it's a movie that I've always kind of liked, but I also it's always been a standoffish movie to me because I feel like when I was little, I kind of found it like disturbing. And even today when you watch it, I understand why I felt that way. One, it's kind of old-timey. It's pretty dark in terms of the way it looks. It's not that typical 80s film stock. There's like a grittiness to the way it looks that a lot of other movies of 1983 didn't have. And there's just a lot of like weird things about it. Like I just feel like the way the brother cries, I have a very visceral reaction to it. Like the piggy stuff is disturbing to me. I remember as a kid thinking the lamp was kind of very strange and a little bit weird and disturbing, and that the mom didn't like it so much made it even more weird and disturbing to me. Obviously, the Santa Claus scene is weird and disturbing. I remember even as a kid thinking that, the soap in the mouth, even though that was like you always heard that.
I got that.
Yeah, but even like I remember as a kid, even like the fact that, you know, Darren McGavin keeps trying to eat the turkey and the mother's like, "You're gonna get worms." It's not like he's trying to eat semi-raw turkey. There's so much of like the tongue on the pole. There's so much about the movie that as a kid, like I found it disturbing. I found this movie kind of disturbing. It wasn't nightmare inducing at all. But to me as a kid, it was very, I had a very uneasy feeling about it. And so I think that's always, over the years, that's always been kind of in the back of my mind. It's like this movie, like in a minor way, kind of freaked me out as a kid. And that's why I've never been totally on board with how much people love this movie, even though I do enjoy it. And watching it this time with you for this is probably the most I've enjoyed it. But it's never been my movie, even though, like I said, as I've grown up, I've had fond memories of it because of that viewing. You know how like sometimes like the movie that really screwed you up when you were a kid, like you kind of look back on that fond like that experience. Even though I wouldn't say this screwed me up, but this movie it created an uneasy feeling in me when I watched it the first time as a young Saturday Night Movie Sleepover watcher.
I certainly gotten kind of not sick of it, but by the time we hit college, I kind of put this one away for a good decade because it was on so much. It was kind of like with Pulp Fiction as well. It's like it's on so much. I know it so well. I tried to get rid of it and just try to just let it sit on the shelf for a couple years so it can kind of come back and I can come back and be fresh at it. To me, I certainly understand what you're saying, like the film stock and the look. Growing up, it and even still now, for me it seems like it's like my biggest complaint a lot of with period films, especially nowadays, is just especially the stuff seen that they shoot these days. It just looks too clean. It looks like, for me, people who are just in Halloween costumes running around, and then if you look in the far background, you just see like modern cars. They shut the street off. All the period cars look brand new, because they're collectors' cars. And if you look down the street, you could see where they closed the street off. You could see modern cars passing by, So it's like, I always have a problem these days with period films because they don't look authentic to me. There's certain films like Carlito's Way or certain movies that I think do have an authentic feel that look really good. Of course, Black Dynamite, I thought, that comedy from a couple years ago, because they shot that on Reversal Film. That looked great. For Christmas Story, I always thought it looked so much of its time of the 40s. Like, it looks like they went back in time and shot it, because the cars don't look like they're brand new. You have these hulks sitting, in alleyways or on front lawns or back lawns, the different eras of car, like much like you'd see in anybody's neighborhood at the time of like, stuff with their wheels off, or just like the outline of a older car that's been abandoned, or the Art Deco-ness of the houses. They shot this in Cleveland, and I've gone to Cleveland twice with work covering news, and I didn't get to go to the Christmas Story house where they shot the exteriors to, which I'm really mad about because I didn't realize until after it happened that I had a chance to go. But I got to go to the downtown area where the green is, where it looks like where the department store is and all that kind of stuff. And what struck me about Cleveland, a lot of these other burgs, is, as we've mentioned before, I grew up in New Haven and in the suburb Hamden, Connecticut. For me, growing up watching Christmas Story, to me, it looked like they shot that in New Haven and Hamden. I mean, the school he goes to looks like my elementary school I went to. I mean, identical, that kind of 1920s when they started rebuilding schools in America, and it has that look of a, that not an institution, but it has that kind of look. And the houses and the neighborhoods of those 2-3 family houses looked exactly like where I grew up and went around. So I think that was one of the reasons that I loved the movie as a kid, because for me, it just looked like it was the neighborhoods I grew up in. So then when I went to Cleveland, I was so struck at how the neighborhoods of Cleveland look like where I grew up, New Haven. And I think a lot of the burgs of the area of the Northeast and, in this area, the old industry burgs have that kind of look. And I always thought, to me, gosh, if I can't make the movie I want to make in New Haven where it takes place, I'll just go to Cleveland and shoot it because it just looks like the back streets. But to round up this long point, it's just that I think it's always been very accessible to me because of how cool it looked of the era, and then of how the streets and everything look like it was in the neighborhoods I grew up in. And I do agree with you that it does have these dark moments, which is funny, which I guess people find cute, or people can find kind of distancing, and I don't know if that's an element of being at Bob Clark or them trying to also go for the adult demographic with of course the leg lamp and all this stuff. It's something that brings in a little adultness to the satirization of Gene Shepard's commentary on it all. It must have been a very conscious choice between Bob Clark, the director, and the writer.
Yeah, I just I don't know. It's even to this day even though we just watched it in my mind's eye, when I think of this movie, it's still kind of disturbing to me. Does anybody else, you the listener, did you ever find this movie disturbing? I do think that the lamp is disturbing. Like, I think as a kid I had, obviously, like, when you get your certain age and you start to think about sexuality in a way, even though you don't know, you're not thinking of it in those terms.
No, I was.
I think the lamp musters up certain feelings, and when you're little, it. I think it was disturbing. It was like this disembodied leg.
So for me to play Dr. Spock, and I'm not talking about Star Trek's Dr. Spock,
not Mr. Spock.
Not Mr. Spock. I'm playing Dr. Spock, and we're sitting on the couch. So for you, the young Jay Blake, for every boy, I think the intention of the lamp is to be like, ooh, you're indicating repressed feelings. What's that? We like girls. We don't know what they are yet. Remember, Ralphie tries to run his hands up the leg, and then when he gets the mom doesn't like it. So let me try to formulate this question. What you find disturbing is the sexual suggestion as a kid of reading the lamp, and or also what's her name, Melinda Dillon's reaction as a mom that dad would bring this into the house and there'd be this kind of tension,
and that he liked it so much.
Who, Darren McGavin?
Yeah.
Well, now and then to read in, this is like an adjunct sidebar. Does Darren McGavin like it because it's a leg, or does Darren McGavin like it a little more just because it's like the only thing he's ever been awarded? I think
as an adult watching it, I think it's more like it's a big I forget what term he uses. It's a something prize. It's a very important prize. Like, I think in hindsight, as an adult, I watch it, I think he likes it more because like he's won it, and he's not a winner.
He's never won anything in his life.
And so, like,
it's unfortunate how it looks, but
but as a kid, I don't know if I thought about it in either terms. I just knew it was like this disembodied leg. There certainly was a sexual overtone to it. And the mom was really disturbed by it and hated it. And I think those are the things that I was reacting to as a kid.
You can envision your mom being there.
I mean,
yeah.
I was a mama's boy, and I think especially when you grow up with a single mom, I think you have a relationship with your mother that people who grow up with both parents have. It's a slightly different relationship. So that's just like an example. But there's just a lot of, even the idea of like you shoot your eye out, and then he does hurt himself. Like, I remember being disturbed by that. Like I said, like, there's a lot of things in it that I just remember. Like I said, it didn't like induce nightmares in me, and it didn't scar me for life or anything. But I just remember as a kid feeling uneasy about the movie.
It certainly bucks a trend where when we always lament when you go to our era of the 80s growing up, and then a little for the 90s, but specifically for the 80s, we always say that, people at that time of age are reminiscing about the 50s. So, of course, we talk about Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, or in movies like American Graffiti, or the horror movies that were being remade at the time. But this kind of bucks the trend because the author is slightly older. He's reminiscing for an era before that. It's like our grandparents' era.
Yeah.
So it's pre-World War II, and I think this is the perfect time for this story to take place. If this, in fact, is December 1940, which is a year before we get into the war, we're bombed, and Pearl Harbor is December of 41. We're still kind of in that bliss of, depression's still on, of course, but if you're a kid living in the suburbs of a working town, be it a factory town or something like that, and you're going to school and you're, he looks like he's lower middle class, or, lowest you could be middle class, but dad's trying to do what he can to keep the family going, but you could tell the car doesn't start every day, or they're having problems with the furnace or the lights, so, who knows if they own the house or if they rent the house, or they probably own the house, but... So, what's my point of all this? So like it is very iconic of the era, and it's you could see why in the 80s, a studio saying like, why would we be interested in learning about a kid or a story about a kid who wants a Red Ryder BB gun? Because at the time I didn't know what Red Ryder was, and although Annie was big when we were little because they did the musical of Annie, that was a kind of a movie hit. But when they talk about Little Orphan Annie, when they say it so quickly in that context, I never made the connection that Little Orphan Annie is Annie that we knew from the theaters.
Yeah.
And now knowing Red Ryder and all these different other things, and like the Lone Ranger, of course, I knew what the Lone Ranger was because it was in syndication when I was little on TV on like Saturday or Sunday mornings, and I knew what radio. And this could have been. One of the movies that got me into like listening to radio. We always talk about what got us into listening suspense, or at the library going to check out those stuff, and Orson Welles' War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
So watching this now, I was wondering maybe this is something that got me turned on to like opening the idea that I would be interested in that. But it is, getting back, it is an interesting idea to have this story that takes place in the 40s, and it's a slightly older person writing it because he's probably in his 50s or 60s maybe, if I were to check his age when he did this. So it is interesting that they didn't want to change this. Now, he's born 1921, so he would have turned 102 this year in July. So, yeah, he's probably in his 60s when he's writing, this story in either in the 1960s or 1970s.
Which means he would, like, in this, he would have been, like, 20.
Yeah, in 1940, yeah, because if he would have been graduating high school, college. So his era, for this to be accurate, it should have been the early to mid 30s.
Yeah,
for him to be the age that he would have been.
But whatever. It's he. Look, there's actually a lot to unpack. I don't know
well, let's just start. Open the steamer trunk.
Obviously, like I would start with Bob Clark, but.
And we can start putting stuff on hangers.
But really, it starts with Gene Shepard.
Well, let's start with Bob Clark just for the sake of it's a good connection because you're talking about how the movie disturbed you.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think Bob Clark has something to do with that. And if people don't know, this is another thing that astounds me. People who love this movie, they may not know Darren McGavin. They probably know Peter Billingsley now because, he's kind of made a name for himself, especially in the comedy kind of romantic comedy or comedy movies. But nobody knows who Darren McGavin is unless you make reference. And then no one's going to know if you say who Bob Clark is and who Bob Clark is in relation to like filmographies and stuff.
Well, Bob Clark is I don't know if I don't know much about like his.
I don't know much about Bob Clark.
I'm going to guess. Looks like he was an American filmmaker, but he started his career in Canada.
In Canada, yeah.
Yeah, so, he was an American, U.S. Citizen, but his career starts in Canada, and he is, in my estimation, arguably one of the most underrated filmmakers of all time.
All time.
In sheer fact of his eclectic filmography, most of which most people haven't seen. But the fact that, I think of a guy like, I always just used to marvel at the fact that Billy Wilder could make Double Indemnity and also Some Like It Hot. You know, what I mean? Like you don't see filmmakers that get to, or Howard Hawks could produce The Thing, could make Rio Bravo, and also make Bringing Up Baby. Like the idea that a filmmaker can dabble in different genres as freely and as expertly is kind of a lost art form.
I think it was, for me, I think it was more common, not for me, but it seemed like it was more common back in those studio system days because you were directed for hire.
But even like...
But getting to what you're talking about, of the era of Clark, which is his coming up in the 60s and 70s, it's far and far between because you're not having a studio dictating what you're doing next.
Yeah, I mean, the studio system is a whole other thing that we don't need to get down, but just the idea that someone could be so proficient in looking back on it, and because we're of a generation where filmmakers usually make a certain kind of movie, and that's the kind of movie they make. Martin Scorsese makes Martin Scorsese movies, and sure, he's made King of Comedy, but even his comedies, King of Comedy,
Pete's Dragon,
even his comedies, there's like a gritty, disturbing aspect to them. And sure, like John Carpenter has made horror movies and he's made action movies, but you might straddle one or two, you might straddle two genres, but it's not frequent that someone would practically invent the slasher genre with Black Christmas, like Bob Clark did. Yeah,
Bob Clark. Yeah,
Bob Clark starts his career like many filmmakers did, working in almost mostly in the horror genre with Children Should Play with Dead Things.
Good movie.
Black Christmas.
Well, people don't realize
Death Dream. I'm trying. There's a couple of different titles for one of his other horror movies. Go ahead.
Well, people don't realize that yes, Christmas Story isn't his first Christmas movie, and then when you bring up Black Christmas. I think listeners of this show will know a reference to Black Christmas, if not have already seen it, if not have already listened to our episode we did pretty early on about it, which I think you contend is like one of your favorite episodes.
Yeah, I like our. I think that was one of the episodes where we started kind of like hitting our. You could see glimpses of what the show is going to become when we.
Yeah, because it was a very early. It was only like the 5th or 6th episode. It might have been the first Christmas episode we did for Christmas time, and I don't think people realize, barring our listeners again, but the cultural significance, like you're saying, of a Black Christmas, because everyone always kind of gives Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, the title of the first quote-unquote popular version of a slasher movie, or they may even go at, not Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but there's something else at the time, I forget, that's before Halloween that some people may cite. But Black Christmas certainly has a lot of freaking elements of stuff that people take for granted nowadays. And that you can marvel at, that like he's doing this brand new. And then, of course, there was a remake in the 2000s of Black Christmas, which I remember being okay when I saw it.
And there's been another one, which isn't really a remake. They just call it Black Christmas.
Oh, okay.
But it's less a remake than the other one, which the other one is good. It's really
I remember
weird.
Liking it. Yeah, that's how you just make it weird, and it's like, oh, okay. But the original is like strikingly good.
Yeah,
striking. I mean, of course, go back and listen to our whole episode on it. But as we said in there, it's just disturbing and inventive and new and everything. The ending is messed up.
It has almost all of the elements of what we think of as a paint-by-numbers slasher movie. Bob Clark kind of does it maybe 4 or 5 years before Carpenter does it with Halloween. I mean, even the fact that it's a Christmas movie. Halloween, the success of Halloween led to, My Bloody Valentine, Silent Night, Deadly Night, the idea of April Fool's Day, the idea of doing it like on these Friday the 13th, the idea of doing it on these dates. That starts with Black Christmas. But anyway, so Bob Clark kind of almost invents the slasher genre.
That's 1974, right? Maybe
73, 74, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre is already around that time, around that time. And between the two of those movies, they basically invent every convention that becomes a slasher movie.
And then
more
we
so
see
Black Christmas.
Halloween is what, 78, right?
78,
maybe?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then also kind of like maybe not invents, but is definitely very early on in the teen sex genre with Porky's.
Yeah, exactly. And that's around the time this movie comes out. Christmas Story comes out.
So he makes Porky's, and then he makes, Rhinestone, classic.
Classic.
But, okay, take a look at the horror movies, take a look at Porky's, take a look at Christmas Story, but then he also makes Murder by Decree, which is another Saturday Night Movie Sleepover fave between Dion and
that's the movie he does right before this movie, Murder by Decree, which is a real left turn for people. And growing up, people didn't know it or care for it when I was growing up, and I knew it. It was one of those movies back when A&E was actually arts and entertainment television. You'd see them playing that along with the Beguiled. They play like Murder by Decree, and you'd see it. And my mom was a movie she loved, so I'd watch it with her, and I love that movie. And it's basically an earlier version of Alan Moore's From Hell.
Yeah,
but which is also based off of.
There's a book and a theory that both of them are based off of,
and I forget the name of the book because I own it, and it came out around that time in the late 70s, purporting about the whole the thing about Murder by Decree. Is basically it brings Sherlock Holmes into the story, so it's like a historical fiction. He goes after Jack the Ripper, and then the idea of Jack the Ripper being connected to the royal family, which is something you see in From Hell, which they changed they changed Sherlock Holmes out kind of in From Hell with the Johnny Depp character, which I'm not saying Alan Moore consciously did, but Murder by Decree does it really well. And then they have like Donald Sutherland in there as a psychic. There's a lot of interesting things.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Genevieve Bujold has a scene. It's Christopher Plummer and James Mason.
Yeah, Christopher Plummer playing Sherlock and Mason playing Watson. My pee, Holmes. I need to get my pee. And it's like they did it on the studio lots, so that's very inventive. It's certainly a movie that I'm surprised we haven't done here yet. Nor I don't know if there'd be an audience for it if we did it on here.
Yeah,
since we're far.
It's a great movie that you and I both love, and I think you probably introduced me to it way back in the day. But so Bob Clark, a guy who straddles genres like nobody's business, went on to make Baby Geniuses.
Yeah,
great filmmaker who has had success in many genres, and unfortunately died kind of tragically, I believe, if I recall correctly, in a car accident with his.
Yeah, him and his son both died. I think they were in Alaska. I remember when it happened, and I want to say it was 2007 or so. They were driving. They were hit by a drunk driver, and they were both killed. And very tragic at the time for that happening. Yeah.
So this goes back. So Bob Clark, at some point in his single days, I don't know exactly what time period we're looking at, but he's on his way to pick up a date in the car, and he has the radio on, and he hears this radio personality named Gene Shepard reciting stories of his growing up in the Midwest
on the radio.
I don't think he's talking about the Christmas stuff, but he just hears this guy on the radio, and he's listening to it, and he's really intrigued. So intrigued that when he gets to his date's house, he starts circling the block so he can finish the story. And he ends up being 45 minutes late for his date because he's listening to this guy, this radio personality named Gene Shepard. He's so mesmerized by this guy's storytelling. And he makes a note to himself. He's like, I have to make a movie with this guy at some point. I have to figure out who this guy is, what his deal is. And he decides he wants to make a movie with Gene Shepard.
And that was a kind of a, in that era, if we're talking 60s, 70s, that was a huge thing that, you'd have these radio people giving, radio was much more of a bigger industry at the time. So you had people like Paul Harvey, Gene Shepard. You'd come on and you'd give maybe without a script, they would say Gene Shepard wasn't using a script a lot, and they would reminisce or give a speech, or, certainly a lot of it was religious in some aspects. Other people were just giving commentary about colorful anecdotes of their history. I forget what was the name of the radio show that just ended some years ago, but it was they used to do a radio play every Sunday in Minneapolis or somewhere, something company. Oh, it was a comedy, and they would do it like it's a radio show, but it was very funny. and the name escapes me right now, but they'd been going on for many, many, many years. So this was a great institution that kind of is by the wayside, but I guess Shepard was working also for WOR, which is a very famous radio station in New York City, and he was streaming out of there, and he was getting syndicated all across the country, and you were hearing these stories, and people got to know him and liked his particular style. So stories that he would narrate, or he would write short columns for in like Playboy magazine or Mad magazine or different kind of weekly publications.
Yeah, so he was this radio personality that became known for reciting these stories that he would probably based in truth, but also probably heavily dramatized for effect, about himself or a youth growing up in the Midwest. And I think allegedly, at some point, I think it was maybe Shel Silverstein who was like, hey, you should write a book. You should have like a book. So he ends up writing a novel, which was a collection of kind of these types of stories called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, which I think was, I don't know, 1961 maybe. That comes out, and then it's stories from that book, chapters from that book, in conjunction with a few stories from another book that he writes called Wanda Hickey's Night of Golden Memories and Other Disasters, that become the basis of what becomes A Christmas Story. And you can find on YouTube him reading like the main chapter from In God We Trust on YouTube, like old like radio broadcasts of him.
Yeah, like the little vignettes of these different stories they kind of put together to make this bigger story.
And Amazon even has you can buy the book, which is where they've taken all the chapters from the two books that comprise all the stories and A Christmas Story, and they have it in a Christmas Story book. But initially they were published as kind of chapters or short stories in these two books, and those stories were then kind of handpicked, cherry-picked, and made into a Christmas Story. And as Dion was kind of saying or indicating, Christmas Story was a very hard sell in the early 80s. And the idea that this would be a heavily narrated thing, which was narration was not a convention that was used often anymore in cinema. The fact that, as Dan pointed out, it's not looking back at the 50s, but it's looking back at the 40s. There was just a lot of things about this movie that nobody really liked. The idea thought that it would be profitable. But Bob Clark was insistent that he wanted to make it. So when Porky's was a success, the company obviously wanted him to make another Porky's movie. And he said, I'll make another Porky's movie if you let me make A Christmas Story. And he ends up, I think, putting his own, like fee into it to get it made. And he brings on Gene Shepard, and who helps write the script and ends up ultimately being the narrator of the movie.
And they said they were toying with the idea, the concept for like 10 years, him and Shepard. I guess he had met Shepard, or they'd grown together, and they were kind of trying to come up with some sort of, I guess, ultimate lit path or throughway of them being able to take all these stories and make it some sort of concise thing. And I guess back in that day, Shepard was kind of a popular name. People knew him from radio and stuff like that. He did a very legendary thing in the 50s where he was he started a campaign for a book that never came out called I, Libertine, but it was a hoax where he made up a fake author and he went on the radio to interview the fake author and talk about for people to go to bookstores and order the book, and the book wasn't even real, and it was just a power of suggestion, kind of like Orson Welles with War of the Worlds, but it just kind of shows his humor and stuff. And a lot of this, I don't know if it was embellished, a lot of his stories, much like, say, Bill Cosby when he does this comedy about the kids in childhood or growing up. When you're sourcing your own childhood or stories around you, there are people who go back, and if you look at Christmas Story, will cite the different places, because where he grew up in Indiana, where the Christmas story movie film takes place, even though it was filmed in Cleveland. They can cite Cleveland Street, which was in Indiana. The school is a real school that he went to, the elementary school. The department store or the flick and the real people were real people in his life. And he just cherry-picked all these things and made it into a concise story. And it's interesting, you look at it, if you break it down, the vignettes, there are like, interesting multiple storylines going on and going through, which, watching the movie as a kid, you don't realize, but it's like, oh, there's all these different subplots. You have the, Ralphie's adventures with his friends, them trying every day to get away from the bullies, Ralphie waiting for the decoder ring, his father fighting the never-ending battle with the boiler, the father fighting the dogs every morning, him wanting the BB gun, them being tormented by the bullies every day going to school. So there's all these different things that come together that in itself could be just little adventures, but the through line is almost the Christmas is coming and I want my BB gun, and this is how everything ties together and is, kind of connects all to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up creating a very detailed world, all these little vignettes, because the reality is we all have various storylines going on in our lives at any given time. We're not sure we're looking forward to an event, but there's all these other things happening. So I think it really works well. And I think they do kind of a brilliant job of creating a very believable, detailed world from the fact that it's, like you said, all these things are kind of cherry picked from various stories. If you listen to him read the chapter about the Red Ryder BB gun from an old radio show, whether it's an abridged version or a longer version, like a lot of the dialogue that he says is the exact dialogue in the movie. So they kind of do an amazing job of staying completely true to the original source material, but taking these different elements and like interweaving them into a cohesive, full story. It's really kind of amazing. Like I said, watching it this time, because I probably haven't seen it in its entirety since the 90s. Like it's on so much, and you catch like a half hour of it around Christmas, and you move on, or things come up. You catch it in chunks over the years. But to sit down and watch it from beginning to end and see it, but also, we've said in the past, the way at least I do, and I think Dion does too when we do this show, we watch the movies with like two different sets of goggles on when we do it for the show. We do it one because we have to talk about it and analyze it, so we have to be we're watching it for those reasons, so we have to pay attention to those kinds of things. But at the same time, we're also trying to watch it with fresh eyes and try to remember what it was like as a kid to watch it for the first time. So it's this weird kind of polarity that we have to watch, that we try to watch these movies with, to be, analytical, but also be completely free. It's kind of, like they're kind of like two opposites. But watching it this time, it was definitely a movie that, watching it in its entirety now at age 45 compared to, as a teenager or whatever in its entirety, or as a little child, it's one of those movies that totally hit me in a different way. One, you notice that this style of narration that everybody thought was out of date or weird in 1983 becomes the basis of the Wonder Years. Really,
yeah, the popularity you get that whole Wonder Years, which I don't know. I guess they rebooted the Wonder Years since. I don't know how far that went, but yeah,
like it kind of rejuvenates this kind of storytelling, or creates it. Really,
begets it. Yeah,
like the Wonder Years becomes a an 80s show nostalgic for the 60s with a grown-up narrator reciting his stories as a child. And
that became a phenomenon in itself, right? That ran for, what, a decade, I would say?
It ran for a long time, but it also, Kevin, especially as the younger Kevin, had these like outlandish fantasies, just like Ralphie does in this movie. Like, I remember a specific episode where he's, they're talking about, I think it's when he starts to have the hots for Winnie or something. He starts to feel sexual feelings for the first time. And there's like a Star Trek dream sequence.
Really?
Like a fantasy sequence where he's Kirk and Winnie and her friends are an alien, or like aliens, and Paul is Spock, So even at least early on when Kevin is young in the Wonder Years, he's also having these very like detailed, great, wacky dream sequences or daydream sequences. Clearly, Gene Shepard also was very in touch with his childhood. Which in a way that I'm not sure adults of previous generations were, or maybe that's just speculation on my part. I think Dion and I think the reason why we like doing the show and maybe why we're able to connect with people and doing a show like this is because I think we're still very in touch with our childhoods. And I think that's one of the things that makes this movie kind of great. I think people look at it. I mean, what's the thing that really children have that adults tend to lose as
Innocence.
We grow up? Innocence, but also like this sense of like wonder and active imagination,
Opportunity? Yeah.
And I think that's one of these things that, I think we connect with in this movie is that Ralphie's imagination is so big and it's so great that we kind of miss that part of ourselves. I mean, I remember, as a kid, like when you were out there playing G.I. Joe or whatever, and not with the figures, but you're out there with your fake
Playing like war.
Yeah. Or whatever your game of choice is, X-Men, I remember going through a phase of that, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. When you're out there and you're doing it, like it's real.
Yeah, sure. You're dreaming it.
It was virtual reality.
Yeah.
Except for it was in our heads. And that's what happens with these dream sequences for Ralphie and then later, Kevin in the Wonder Years. And I think it's one of the things that we really connect with and a beautiful aspect of this movie, even though, and there's really only a handful of them, and there's really only like a couple of them. There's the one with the Blackbeard or Black Bart, and then there's he has the ones in the classroom
in the soap poisoning. What brought you to this lonely state? Soap poisoning. Or they had one that they deleted, which I'd love to see. They did a Flash Gordon one, which was very
and apparently there's a still of it you can find at some.
That would have been cool.
And it looks, I mean, just from the still, it looks really cool. And the guy that they were having play Flash Gordon looked exactly like the Flash Gordon from
that's awesome.
From the serials.
But I completely agree. I mean, growing up, being of his age, I was engaging in all the things Ralphie was engaging in. I was looking out the window, daydreaming about whatever at the time was popular: Cops, Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, Transformers, comic books, drawing, being miles away in class, thinking about all these things, getting out of school, going home with my friends. In my elementary school, I would walk back and forth. I was close enough to walk back and forth to school until I hit middle school and high school. That's when I had to take a bus. So, I engaged in all that. And then, being in a place like Connecticut growing up where we had the changing of the seasons, so we would get winters that looked like this. It was very much Christmas time was having a winter area and being able to have all this stuff. So very much it is kind of the thing that, I agree with, that it's something that's really identifiable for people of our age and generation to latch on to and realize, which ends up being really cool because it's something that I think that's what brought me so quickly and closely to this story was that, that I identified so much with Ralphie, what he wanted. I didn't particularly want a BB gun growing up, but for people of his era, that was something that, you'd want, and that could be the MacGuffin for whatever. You want whatever toy you wanted growing up. If you're looking for something big like a USS Flag aircraft carrier or something like this, that's what the MacGuffin would be.
Sure. I mean, yes, definitely. It's universal. I assume that kids are still like this, but definitely up through the 80s, we were still very much, like you said, there's the toy we want. There's the friends. There's the idea of the triple dog dare or whatever. Maybe we didn't use those terms. Maybe we did. But there's the relationship you have with your friends. There's the bullies that you're afraid of, which is another thing. I think the bully in this movie was very scary to me as a kid as well.
And then playing Peter and the Wolf, the intro of him coming, do 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 do, and seeing him, it was all very, and Fargus, his little, is that his name? Fargus is the sidekick. Or no, he's Fargus, and the other sidekick is I forget the little kid's name. Yeah. But it was exactly like a bully, and again, I find that just the movie so authentic in a sense because of him. Everything looks great. Everything looks the same. Everything looks like of the time and era, and there's nothing to me that seems out of place.
But it's also a movie that you could have done at any time.
Yeah, of course. It could have been a 70s movie. It could have been an 80s movie.
Like, I don't know if we talked about, I know last year we did, how, just recommendations for Christmas. And I don't remember what all my recommendations was, but there's a movie that's kind of a more recent movie that's kind of an 80s version of this called 8-Bit, which the kid wants a Nintendo.
Oh, I saw the name of that on the, when I was looking up this movie.
It's good. It's actually really good, but it's definitely our generation's version of Christmas Story. He's telling his daughter about the time that he wanted a Nintendo, and so he has this flashback, and he's narrating the story about trying to get a Nintendo for Christmas. So it's very consciously
ripping off
today's version of that movie, trying to be like, hey, let's do a Christmas Story for people of our generation.
Ain't that just so weird? I mean, we're old enough now to be like, that was, I don't know. Again, going down that weird hole of becoming an adult, where it's like, that doesn't seem too long ago for me, but of course people weren't alive then, and it's just
you think about, if they, yes, they did a remake of The Wonder Years, but it still takes place in the 60s. Yeah. If they did a remake of The Wonder Years that was realistic,
it'd be the 80s, right?
It would be 2003.
Because it was late 80s.
It was 20 years
after.
It was the show airs 20 years after the events of the show. So I mean, really, The Wonder Years today, Marty McFly today would be jumping into DeLorean and going back to 2003.
Oh, God, isn't that insane?
You wouldn't even be going back to the 80s.
No, you wouldn't. No, that's too long. That would be like Marty McFly in the 80s going back to what, the
he goes
30s?
He goes back to, the 80s, he goes back to the 50s.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm talking about now.
So, I mean, I guess
if Marty McFly jumped into,
I guess Marty would be going back to the 90s now.
Yeah, but if Marty McFly jumped into DeLorean at, what was that, 30 years? So it was the 80s to the 85 to 55. But if we wanted him now to go back to the 80s, which is 40 years ago, he'd be going back to the 30s. He'd be going back to the Depression. He'd be going back to this time of his dad being young in the Christmas Story or whatever, or his grandparents or his parent. I don't know.
Yeah,
his parents being.
But I mean, that's the crazy thing. Is time has passed so much. But yeah, I think one of the things about Christmas Story is that it's universal. It could be set in any time, really. Yeah. I mean, what's going on in it is we can all relate to.
The childhood angst of growing up. And I mean, the only thing they don't really talk about in this, and this could be something for years have been told that there were other versions of Christmas Stories that had been predated this, that Shepard had written, that had come out, like the PBS things we could talk about. And I'm not talking about the sequels that were made directly because of A Christmas Story, but there's a 4th of July one and stuff like that. I'm talking about, like, the only thing I don't think this really addressed is any kind of angst a child of that age may have with a girl, or like, there's no time for that since it's the Christmas season.
Yeah.
So you don't really have any situation where he's likes a girl, trying to kiss a girl or whatever. I mean, you do. Obviously, I think he likes girls and women or whatever. That's, the attraction.
I think in a lot of ways, we maybe don't think of it in a traditional way, but this movie is very much like a coming of age story.
And the lamp represents all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lamp represents like his first
urge, or
his first like the beginning of his fascination with women happens in this movie. I think the idea of the Red Rider become to him is a symbol of adulthood. Like to him, it's like, I can go fend off grizzly bears. I can save
marauders
my
and stuff.
Parents,
from Black Bart.
It's not a toy. It's this it's the symbol of like, oh, if I have this, then I'll be he's wanting to be a grown up, which I think is what is a very important part of childhood that I think maybe some movies about childhood don't really capture. I mean, I remember, they're obviously a lot older in Rebel Without a Cause, but I was messing around with this guitar lick, and then I woke up early Sunday morning, and Rebel Without a Cause was on Turner Classic Movies, and I watched it. I hadn't seen it since maybe I was a teenager, certainly not in its entirety. And I was trying to write this song, and I couldn't write a song. I'm not really a songwriter, but I wanted to start trying to write original songs. And there's a scene in Rebel Without a Cause where Natalie Wood and James Dean and what's the
Sal
Mineo, they're like kind of playing house.
Yeah, they're up in the house, and he's walking around, and he's showing her the house. It's the abandoned house in the hills near the end by the Griffith Observatory.
But they're like pretending that they're married. And so I ended up writing the song, and I called it Song for Judy because her name in the movie is Judy. And the song is about this girl who wants to grow up faster than she's a kid, and that she should appreciate being a kid now, because when you're grown up, you're going to wish you were a kid.
That's what you don't realize.
Obviously they're teenagers in that movie, but I think that's a constant. I was thinking, walking behind kids on the street, and obviously in New York, any given street will have scaffolding.
Yeah.
Or a tree on the side, depending on what street in Midtown, there will be one tree. And you always see like kids or walking behind a family with kids of a certain age. They always try to jump up and hit things.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid trying to jump up and hit like the doorway.
Yeah, or a leaf on the tree.
Yeah, a leaf on the tree.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, why is it that like young boys want to jump and hit things? I think it's because like you want to be bigger.
Yeah.
You want to grow up. And so, ultimately that's what I think that's what the Red Ryder BB gun is for Ralphie. It's like the symbol of like, okay, like he wants to be bar mitzvahed. Like it's time for him to be a man. He's so anxious to be a man. And this symbol of this gun, an adult thing, is that for him. And I think there's a lot of little things. Him beating up the bully. There's, his relationship with his dad. His dad kind of like hints about like, do you want a taste of the wine or whatever? It's not maybe your traditional coming of age story, but there's definitely an element of that in this. And I think the lamp in this case kind of represents that, like his sexual awakening is
the peak
is like when he sees this lamp. His younger brother is either he's kind of indifferent to it
or oblivious. He's kind of not really
like he obviously doesn't have those feelings, but Ralphie it's awakened something.
Yeah.
And
certainly his mother realizes that. And I certainly agree that him getting the Red Ryder certainly, because of that era, cowboys and Indians and the frontier, that whole idea of the Western and taming the far off kind of exotic land, him being able to come in and, take control of the town, protect people. And over the years watching this movie, I've always gotten a newfound respect for those little vignettes. Not so much. I mean, they kind of annoyed me when I was little because they were slightly sped up and stuff, and I didn't realize, Black Bart, him being like the quote unquote carbon copy of like, with the black and white stripes of an outlaw and the black painted on like the eyes of like a domino over his eyes. But I've gotten the respect of listening to the dialogue of Ralphie walking in with the Red Rider, and he's got like chewing tobacco in his mouth, and he's the ardent professional, and underneath his mother is dressed of like, like, what are we gonna do? And his dad's got like the coonskin cap on, like Davy Crockett, like, I'm so glad you came. Like they're kind of settlers that are living like, in the woods, and, they're almost going to be taken off by this marauding gang if Ralphie didn't come, with his little orphan aunt, not little orphan, that's the Dakota ring, but the Red Rider BB gun with all this extra stuff. And he's like, let's take a look. And he gets up, he's got the gun, and he's able to, there's a lot of subtlety in it, which I didn't really pick up on growing up, that I see a lot more, especially with the Darren McGavin, the little parts Darren McGavin brings to it, talking to the mom, or the little asides or his jokes. I mean, we always know Fragile, it must be Italian. That always got a big laugh the first time you heard it. And now a lot of that's, to me, is played out. Like people say that all the time. Yeah. And it's so played out that some people don't even know what it's from, or they don't know the joke anymore because it's almost gone full circle. But there's so much more stuff that Darren McGavin is doing with his mother, Melinda Dillon, and it's just funny. It's all very interesting. Growing up, I always loved when Flick got his tongue stuck to the flagpole. Everybody gets up and runs except Ralphie and his friend. They just sit there, because of course they're guilty. And then, growing up, to me, I never really knew if the teacher knew who did it. But then us being adults now, and if you were a teacher in that context, who hangs out with who. Yeah. So when she certainly sees the entire class run up to look out the window except the two of them, and then when she's standing in front of them, basically just staring them down, like, I don't know who did this, and then like Ralphie's like looking around. It's just so, because that's what I would do. You look at it, just it's just so funny. The subtlety there I find very humorous.
Definitely. But I also remember, I also thought this time around watching that scene, like, well, they didn't really do anything. I mean, it was like Fink's fault. I mean, like, they didn't.
No, they just dared him into doing it.
Yeah, like it's not like they,
no, they didn't force him to.
Like held him.
Yeah, come on, hold him, and like put his arm behind his back, make him say uncle, and then force his face,
and then smash his face into the pole. Like,
they kind of antagonized him into doing it, and then everyone just like, the bell rang, and they run away.
Yeah, she's like, who put him up to this? It's like, well. I mean really, it was his choice. Yeah. He didn't have to do it.
And then actually, half the class was there watching. I mean, you think of all the onlookers and spectators. And that's, I mean, I don't mean to keep hammering it home, but that's the authenticity I love about when you look out the window and you have that, like, really, really like long lens. And it's across the field, but it still looks like it's the 40s with the cars and the people showing up, and it's just so authentic, even down to the furniture, like the stuff in Ralphie's rooms and stuff. A lot of my furniture, specifically growing up, were hand-me-downs from my grandparents. That might have been my mom's. So like my desk in my house or my bureaus and stuff were like of that era. So all that's familiar to me. I mean, and aside from really having like the era of like the kind of wallpaper that looks very 40s, which I didn't have, all that, it's just, everything just reeks of such authenticity that I really, I'm kind of at home in all this kind of environment.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an element of the movie that even people who are 20 today won't connect with in the same way, because like we did have like our parents were born in the 40s, like we were around, like you go to my grandparents' house, and even though maybe they bought that house in the 60s, they didn't buy new furniture for that house. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
they still had all the stuff.
moved their furniture from their previous house. So
that could have been from their parents or wedding presents and stuff. So that's all we were all filled with that.
Yeah, we have it's familiar, like you say.
Yeah.
Like that kind of the furniture, all those things are kind of familiar to us in our childhoods in a way.
Creature comforts.
Nowadays, like furniture is kind of like disposable.
It's IKEA. It's terrible
you buy
plastic,
it, it costs $100.
Yeah.
It lasts a couple of years, and then it starts to get loose and wiggly, and you throw it out, you get a new one. But back in the day, it was like these giant oak.
Yeah, there was an art to it. It was made by somebody down the road. Was his furniture designer, was his hobby and trade.
I remember my grandmother's furniture in her house had this very it was wood. It was beautiful, finished wood in her bedroom. The dresser, the makeup table, which she didn't wear makeup, but it was that kind of thing. A mirror. It was all had this very Art Deco vibe to it, and my aunt may have that furniture now if she still has it, but it was beautiful. Even as a kid, I remember looking at it and being like, well, this is, like we didn't have furniture like that at our house. You know what I mean? There was a craftsmanship and a beauty to it, a design. So
that's all lost nowadays.
The art of design. It was really gorgeous, but it was all kind of very old timey. And even my grandmother was still using a sewing machine where you had to rock.
Oh, the bottom stair, the pedal.
It wasn't electric. Yeah. It was man powered.
Yeah, we had a couple of those growing up, which were nightstands. So it was a nightstand that you can open up, flip the sewing machine up onto it, and then you'd have the pedal down the bottom, and you'd be able to pedal it. And then for storage purposes, you could flip the sewing machine down, put the thing back up, and then it was a nightstand with a little drawer. You could put a cloth over it, and then it's hidden away, and that's the era. But it was a lot of that stuff you could find.
Like this cast iron.
Yeah, you could kill yourself. It was heavy. It was
like black iron.
Heavy. Yeah. And God forbid you got your finger caught in the spoke of it going, you could kill but it's like stuff I'm sure you could find nowadays at thrift stores and secondhand shops. But if you were trying to find the craftsmanship and some of that stuff nowadays, you'd be paying, hundreds of thousands of dollars for stuff like that because everything's so cheap. It's such an IKEA or, you buy stuff on Amazon kind of a mentality now. You can't really get any of that stuff unless you know where to go. And you can either go to a thrift shop that'll have it, or you get a thrift shop that'll know what it has, and then it's jacked up anyway because it knows it's an antique. But getting back on task, yes, the whole era of the cars, everything, the department store, always rang so true to me, and that's an element that I loved. My dad had a BB gun growing up. It was never anything I was really into. I had guns around the house growing up because my father owned firearms. So it wasn't like I was into trying to grab the BB gun and go shoot things. So that wasn't something that excited me. A couple of my friends, when we were in middle school, secretly bought a BB gun. They had their older brother Martin had his older brother go buy his BB gun. He had a handgun, and then he wanted to go and shoot stuff. And me always still being the kind of person I am nowadays, I never wanted to go with him because I didn't want him to see him shoot a bird or a squirrel and stuff like that. I was like, you just got to shoot cans. Don't shoot anything living. So I never was a real person who was trying to get a BB gun to go shoot stuff. But in this era of the story takes place, I can completely see, they made BB guns for kids. This was an era where, you and I always lament about growing up where we had gun aisles growing up.
Yeah.
You had cap guns and stuff like that. So guns were a part of everyday life, toy guns, I mean. And, a generation or two before us, it wasn't uncommon that you'd get your son a BB gun. I mean, heck, my high school, in the basement of my high school, there was an old firing range because back in the day, my high school had a gun team or a rifle team. It's like almost having a bowling alley. We had a rifle team too. I mean, or an archery too. That was something because if you go back 2 generations of your family, if you're from America for that long, you'll see that it was more rural, so people did have a lot of access to hunting and guns and shooting. So all that's very interesting to me. But as we go on, now Darren McGavin in this movie.
Yeah, I want to talk about both Darren McGavin and Melinda Dillon because I think they are absolutely wonderful in this.
Well, see, now Darren McGavin, I was trying to pin down my wife, who's English. She wasn't introduced to this movie until I showed it to her when she came to America. So I guess they had it in England, but it wasn't as a staple as it is here. She absolutely adores it and watches it every year when we watch it. And she kind of had the right way of being introduced to Darren McGavin because before I showed her A Christmas Story, I had showed her Kolchak the Night Stalker. So I kind of envied her seeing it in the chronological order that audiences of the day saw.
Yeah.
So I was trying to figure out how I was first introduced to Darren McGavin. It most certainly had to be this movie, but I was trying to figure out, was it Dead Heat, Raw Deal, or I wasn't really a sports fan, but he was in The Natural and stuff like that.
That's how I first remember him, is in The Natural.
From The Natural? Yeah.
And he's just, in my recollection, he's disturbing in The Natural.
Yeah, I remember people talk about how kind of crazy, so I was trying to figure out how I first knew Darren, and it must have been from this movie, and shortly after this movie, seeing Dead Heat or Raw Deal at the same time, because he's in those. But now, everybody who listens to this podcast knows that I'm one of the biggest Darren McGavin fans. So much so that actually this might be a good idea to share this story. Our mutual friend Blake and I's Matt, the saxophonist Garrison, who is a jazz saxophonist, great player who does his day job as he teaches, but at night he plays jazz music and is in various bands and stuff. He actually did write and score. We did a episode one year where I, for Christmas, did Inside the Toy Box, where I talked to the old Podwitz guys about stuff from our toys. And we did a Batman intro that he scored and might have even played. So that was Matt playing that. Matt Garrison told me a story that he was jamming with somebody at some place, and he said that Darren McGavin came up. I got to remember the story right. He was talking to a gentleman, and the gentleman's name was Darren McGavin. And he says, wow, you have the same name as Darren McGavin. And he said, no, okay. So let me start this again. Our
Scratch
friend
that,
Matt,
reverse.
Yeah. Our friend Matt is a saxophone player. I think the story is he was talking to a friend of his. His friend of his was playing the space, and I forget what city it was in, and was talking to a guy named Darren McGavin. The guy named Darren, he goes, wow, you know you have the same name as Darren McGavin. And the gentleman said, no, I used to room with Darren McGavin. And Darren McGavin liked my name and took my name, and that became his stage name. So Darren, he thought it was such a good name, he used it as a stage name. So I went on Wikipedia and looked it up, and Darren McGavin's real name is William Kyle Richardson. So it's very plausible that this is true, except I just don't know the age of the person relaying the story, because Darren McGavin died in 2006 or 7, and he would have just turned 100. I think he was born 1922. So I don't know how old this gentleman would have been rooming with Darren McGavin in the late 40s, early 50s for him to make the decision to be Darren McGavin when he started his acting career. The reason I bring this whole freaking long-winded story up is everyone knows how much of a fan I am of Darren McGavin. I even worked out a kind of crazy Darren McGavin impression trying to do the radio play I did last year to try to do an homage to Darren McGavin. I don't want to talk any kind of blasphemy here, but I would only lay out the question, and I'm not giving a pro or con to it, saying, does anybody out there agree with me that Darren McGavin is a little older for the role?
Yeah, totally. But at the same time, I just started watching. I finished watching the one season of The Magician.
Yes, with what's his face?
With Bill Bixby.
Yeah.
And I will just say, quick side note, there's an episode with William Shatner where in the last minute of the episode, you see why William Shatner is such a great actor.
Yeah.
I had to watch the moment. I had to rewind it and watch it like 3 times because Shatner gives a delivery of a line in there. I'm not saying like a hokey Shatner delivery. that elevates that episode, because the episode's actually kind of cheesy, but in the final minutes of that episode, Shatner, he effing brings it, man. Like you watch, you're like, this guy can act. Okay, so finish The Magician. I always like to have an older show that I can visit when I'm eating dinner or whatever. I don't watch it every night. I watched Quincy, was the one before that. Just watched Magician. I just started Streets of San Francisco.
Oh, great. Yeah. A Quinn Martin production.
So I'm like 5-6 episodes into Streets of San Francisco.
Well, that pilot to Streets of San Francisco is crazy.
Yeah, it's based on a book.
That TV movie, the occult with the end and all that, because I watched that, and that thing was crazy.
Robert Wagner.
Yeah.
But I'm 5-6 episodes in, and now the show's starting to take off. But there's always like, you look at the actors in the show, and you look at like, they're talking about, I had it. There's the one I just watched is this woman she gave her son up for adoption, and the son's 5 years old. And she's like, I was 19. I was like, this woman is 35 if she's a day.
Yeah.
She's not 25. She's at least 10 years older than she's playing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not unheard of. But yes, I agree. Darren McGavin is a little too old for this part. Interesting thing about Darren McGavin's casting in this part. I was watching an interview with Gene Shepard from 1983 when this movie came out.
Fresh when this movie was out.
And the woman asks, like, how hard was it to find Peter Billingsley, like the casting process?
Yeah.
He's like, the hard part to find was the old man. Because Ralph's character is pretty passive. It's him watching what's going on a lot of the time. So finding the old man was the tough part. He's like, and everybody wanted to, he's like, Walter Matthau really wanted to play the old man. But we didn't want Walter Matthau. It would be a Walter Matthau movie if Walter Matthau played it.
That'd been weird.
So he's like, I went to
it just would have been, it would have turned into a Walter Matthau.
And it would have been great, but it would have been a Walter Matthau part.
Yeah.
It would have been a Walter Matthau movie. He's like, so I went to Bob and I told him, you got to think of the old man as a guy, he's from Chicago. He follows the Chicago teams. He's a guy who was from Chicago and moved to Indianapolis or whatever it is, Indiana, for work.
The suburbs almost.
And he's a guy who has regret. Like, he had this life in Chicago. He moved to Indiana. And probably the worst thing he ever did was get married and have kids.
This sounds like we're talking about Al Bundy.
And so and that's why, like, the puzzles and stuff, he's a dreamer. He's like Ralphie, he's a dreamer.
Yeah.
He's Kolchak. Kolchak had this great life in Chicago, and then he moved to Indiana, ended up having kids, and he misses his life in Chicago. So why don't we just get Kolchak? Like, the old man is Kolchak. So why don't we just get Kolchak? So that's how that's according to Gene Shepard anyway. That's why they went to Darren McGavin.
Now, I've heard stories about Jack Nicholson, them wanting Jack Nicholson being interested. And then they said that the rumor is Jack Nicholson was interested, but the price, it would have doubled the budget. And then, or before Nicholson gave an answer or they realized Nicholson was interested, they went with Darren McGavin. I love Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson, I have a lot of fondness for in a lot of different roles, and I'm not just talking about his A-sides. I love his B-side work like Ironweed and stuff like The Last Detail and stuff, to Two Jakes. I just don't know how Jack Nicholson of the era of 83, like around Terms of Endearment, I don't know how that would have played.
I mean, we're talking about just like a couple years after The Shining.
Yeah. So, I mean, it might have been cool. I just don't want him to be a nut. He might have played it differently. I mean, like, again, him in Ironweed, which is 87, 88, phenomenal. So if he brought something to it aside from crazy Nicholson, which he might have, because he wasn't yet, like, I'm not going to say he's a parody of himself like a De Niro or Pacino are nowadays. Yeah. So it might have been good, but I just can't envision a guy like Nicholson being in the role, because it would have taken the movie certainly to a different level as soon as it's come out. And I don't know how that would have affected the longevity of it now, if it would have been more popular more quickly and if it would have been as revered or what. But casting McGavin in it, I think, is a stroke of brilliance. The reason I just started the conversation as I did on this is just that I wonder if it would have been better suited for him to have been of the age of Kolchak, because he's in his 50s when he's doing Kolchak.
Yeah.
Or even when he's doing Riverboat, which is the late 50s, 1950s, that means he's in his middle to 30s when he's doing Riverboat, or he's doing, if he did Mike Hammer, the Mickey Spillane series he did in the 50s. That would have been cool seeing Darren in his prime. Not to be said, though, that if you want to explain away his age, he could have just later in life, if I have a child tomorrow, I'm going to be Darren McGavin's age when the kid hits the 10, 11 years old.
Yeah.
So it's very plausible. Yeah, he married later in life, or, I don't know I didn't do the research on what the age difference is between him and Dylan.
Yeah.
So maybe he just got a younger woman and, but.
Yeah, but I also think we just got away with casting older people back then. And it's also like.
Well, yeah. And then going to what you said too, I think we were a lot more forgivable back then, because now, and I don't know if it's just me saying us being more forgivable means that we were ignorant and people that were older back then realized, but now certainly when I or my wife, we watch something and someone, we're watching a show that someo's supposed to be in high school and they're clearly in their 30s.
Yeah, but that was everything back then.
Yeah, so I don't know if that was just that was the conceit that people didn't bother them, or if it was just more blatant because you're older, or people just didn't realize.
Or if you need to explain it away, if you really need to believe it. Like, it's the 40s. I mean, people lived hard.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, for all we know, Darren could only be 35 in that movie.
There's an episode of Quincy, which is like 19. The episode is probably 80, 81, because it starts in the late 70s,
like season 6, season 7.
And you've seen, I take it you've seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The movie.
We're talking about the Gene Wilder one?
Yeah, the Gene Wilder one.
Yes. We covered it on this podcast.
And if you had to guess how old Violet Beauregard's dad, Sam Beauregard here, Beauregard Motors or whatever, like how old do you think that guy was?
In Willy Wonka?
Yeah.
I would say he's in his 50s, but I bet you're going to tell me he's not.
But I'm just saying, flash forward 1980, 81.
So a good 10 years. A decade after.
Maybe 8 years. But almost. Push it. If it's not a full decade, it's pushing it. You know what I mean? He gets in a car accident in Quincy. The orderly or the doctor's like, we have a white male, 40. And I'm like, Sam Beauregard? 40 years old,
which means he's 30 years old when he's doing in 1971 when he's.
So I mean, maybe he was, maybe he was, but Commodore Decker from Star Trek, Doomsday Machine, the guy who goes crazy and wants to fly the Enterprise into the heart of the space bugle.
Yeah,
that guy. I don't know how old that guy is, but flash forward. This is definitely. This is 5 years later, episode of 4 years later, episode of Streets of San Francisco. They're saying he's 40. This guy's full white hair.
Yeah.
This guy's.
I forget what's his name because he's very famous. I always get him mixed up with Kevin McCarthy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
similar
but
look.
It's not. He's the poor man's Kevin McCarthy, and I see him in everything. And he's the one who actually reprised that role. Remember with the fan-made Star Trek series?
Where that was very good. Him sitting like in his lazy boy.
Yeah. Yeah. And they had like the shuttle in his garage because the continuing of that episode was like it went through a wormhole and he landed in modern day.
This is in the weeds, people.
Yeah, really.
There was a fan-made like continuation of Star Trek that was made 20 years ago now.
That they shot in the odds up in upstate New York, and they rebuilt the bridge and all that stuff. And this has not anything to do with the Ticonderoga exhibit that they have nowadays up there.
Yeah.
But somebody had shot and built in a barn a real life Star Trek, and they were doing.
And George Takei did an episode, and I think
Walter
Koenig did.
Yeah,
and there's this episode where it's a continuation of it's
Doomsday.
It's in the future. It's in today, present day now. The Doomsday, and they got this guy, and they went over and just like filmed a video broadcast of him like leaving a videotape, and they just seriously went to the guy's house, and he's sitting in his lazy boy reading this thing, and the woman who plays
It's a great performance.
yeah, and the woman that plays Marlena from the Mirror Mirror episode plays his wife, his widow, in that episode. Anyway, that's really off the beat track. My point is only the people looked older back then as well. So
William Wyndham is his name.
What is it?
Let's
Wyndham?
give him some William Wyndham.
William Wyndham. He's one of those
God
guys.
bless him, because you'll if you see him, you know him and everything. Because like I said, he looks like a poor man's Kevin McCarthy. If people even know who Kevin McCarthy is, and I don't mean the new Speaker of the House or whoever that was. William Wyndham. He's coming up as William Wyndham. Great. Yeah. And he looks like a guy whose hair went gray, like a Steve Martin. It prematurely died a little early.
But anyway, my point is only that Darren McGavin, that the old man, he could have been like 40
and just lived a hard life.
And lived a hard life of 90. I mean, they're coming out of the depression. Sure. I think that's something we got to think about in terms of the movie. Like, this is like just post the Great Depression.
And he's he's working in I don't think it ever says what he does.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has a desk job, or he's working in a factory, or he's doing some sort of manual labor to a certain extent. She's definitely a homemaker, his mom. Let me do one sidebar before we finish with Darren McGavin, because we're talking about great performances. You went back and watched some stuff of Quincy. There's a show called Mannix, which people might have heard of, and soundtrack by Lalo Schifrin. Amazing sound work. People might know Mannix from the recent Quentin Tarantino movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. At the beginning of the movie, when Brad Pitt goes home and cooks himself some macaroni and cheese for dinner and sits with his dog, he's watching Mannix at the beginning, and he's eating. And it was a very heavy stuntman show, a lot of stunts. There's an episode of Mannix, everyone write this down, season 4, episode 1. It's called A Ticket to the Eclipse. And we find out the premise of the show is Mannix is a private detective, and private detectives. So the premise of the episode is that Mannix's old, army company in Korea is getting killed one at a time. And it's almost like Lethal Weapon. It's like, why is his old unit getting killed? We got to try to find out. Come to find out, the head of the unit is Darren McGavin. Darren McGavin is going around killing each one of the people from the unit because he's gone crazy.
Spoiler alert.
And, you learn it like in the first scene because Darren McGavin. So this episode is from 1970, which is a year before Dirty Harry comes out. And Lalo Schifrin did the music for Dirty Harry. So a lot of the music cues in this sound like proto Dirty Harry. It sounds like he was like toying with the idea of like, I'll use this in this movie. So a lot of like the stark cues of with the bad guy in Dirty Harry, and some of the real the frantic or tension music is all done in this. And Darren McGavin in this, he's young, and he's 50 years old, but he's strapping. He's a kung fu expert. Nice. So Mannix goes to see him at his job. He's instructing a class, and he starts having a conversation with Darren McGavin. And Darren McGavin's in his gi. He's just finishing the class with a bunch of young adults of how to like stop a rapist or whatever. And he's like going, ha, ha, and you could completely tell, Darren McGavin has not taken a day of karate in his life. He might have, but not for this back, And then he starts having this conversation with Mannix about, and then it's all the subtext of like, are you the one that's doing this, or are you the one, And Darren McGavin very quickly is insinuating, yeah, I'm the one who's doing all this because I forget why, you left me in the jungle or whatever. So as they're having this conversation next to the mat, there is parallel bars. And Darren McGavin gets on the parallel bars as he's talking to Mannix. And you cut to this long shot, and there's this guy who just looks nothing like Darren McGavin. Starts doing these flips and all these crazy things on the parallel bars, jumps up, does all this stuff. His legs are flying around. jumps off the parallel bars, does like a 3-foot jump in the air, and then it cuts to a close up, and Darren McGavin it just looks like he just jumped like 2 feet in the air, comes down to the mat, and goes ha, and it's just the funniest thing where it's like these long shots look nothing like Darren McGavin. Well, they do, but it just looks like a guy with a mustache, and it's Darren McGavin as he's talking, and so it's just brilliant use of editing back in the old days that the suspension of disbelief, people would believe this is Darren McGavin going through all this. Completely worth watching.
Yeah. Also, I would just note a great young Darren McGavin performance, and he's beautiful in it. He's creepy as the character, but he's very handsome. He's kind of the antagonist in The Man with the Golden Arm.
Yeah, he's the one who sells Sinatra the drugs,
and he's great,
the drug dealer.
But one thing I will say about the part of the old man,
so let's segue back into the.
And I think the reason why Darren McGavin is so great in this part is because there's a warmth to him. Yeah. Because I think when we think about a depiction of a father, 50s, 60s, even 60s with Kevin Arnold in Wonder Years, like the dad, there's a warmth to the dad, but he's stern.
Yeah.
And I think you think of the way a dad is depicted, especially in the 40s, as being like a guy that doesn't say I love you. He's maybe a disciplinarian. He's maybe a little bit of an absentee with a wife who's but he's not
or a drinker,
movie.
He could be tossing him back.
Like he maybe comes home, has his cocktail that his wife makes him, sits and smokes his pipe, and like says hi to the kids, but doesn't like everything.
Or comes home drunk.
Everything that you imagine about like a father figure in the context of popular culture or whatever of that era is someone who's aloof, not really part. He's the breadwinner and that's his job. But I think, I don't think we ever see the old man tell Ralphie he loves him, but there's a warmth. He's not the disciplinarian. You kind of see hints of that, like he's a dreamer and he recognizes the dreamer in Ralphie. He's the one person that Ralphie doesn't ask for the BB gun, but he's the one that gets him the BB gun. I just think it's a really beautiful depiction of a father that we don't get in stories about that era very often. And I think McGavin does a really subtle but great job of depicting that. It's all in that scene where they're sitting on the couch after he's opened all the presents. He's like, did you get everything you want? He's like, well, almost. He's like, almost. Yeah, well, that's life. It's such a beautiful scene. And he's go, wait, what's that behind the desk? And you see that, like, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's so subtle that you don't even probably think about it on a watch. But when you think about the relationship of a dad and a son, it's so everything we've seen to this point is the dad, like you said, the dad is battling the dogs. The dad's he fights with the furnace. This relationship between these
man versus nature, man versus technology.
Yeah, but and Darren McGavin has a charm and a warmth that may perhaps isn't inherently there in someone like Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you look at Darren McGavin, you like Darren McGavin. You know?
You want to give him a big hug and
he's just got one of those faces. And so, like, watching it now as an adult, I don't have children, but I do connect with that relationship and that character in a way now that I certainly didn't when I was a kid and certainly didn't as a teenager. On the flip side, like, Melinda Dillon's great. Melinda Dillon, notorious nude scene in Slapshot for anybody, but she plays the mom in Harry the Hendersons, which is a movie that
is she in Close Encounters as well?
She might also be the mom in Close Encounters.
I think that's what got her the job on this. I don't know if Slapshot did, but I think they might have saw Close Encounters. Before we bookend Darren, his versatility of being able to be a complete psycho a la Max Cady in that episode of Man X, going to this where he's just this warm father figure. And there is I've seen a little speculation online that at the beginning of this movie, when Ralphie puts the ad in the Look magazine and leaves it, he might have left it on his dad's bed. And that could have been how the dad opened the Look magazine to that art and said, oh, Red Ryder BB gun. Maybe that's what my kid wants. But I'm certain the dad must have been aware because, like you said, he asked the mom. The teacher knows. He had the writing assignment. I mean, Dad might be aloof enough not to.
I don't know if Ralph would have left it on his dad. I don't think Ralph.
No, but I think he might have. But I think I forget how it was worded, but that's how by the dad saw it. He opened the magazine and got the idea that way. That it was the Look magazine that might have given the dad the idea. I had a similar instance when I was little. It wasn't a Red Ryder BB gun, but I remember being very little when I was about 6 years old. Christmas was over that morning. And then I thought all the presents were opened, and then my dad's like, what's that over there? There's something else. And I looked, and he's like, Santa left something else for you. And it was under the couch, and I took it out, and I was like, what's this? And I opened it up, and you know what it was? It was a Play-Doh fire engine. One of those ones where you can, you put the Play-Doh in it, and you pull the ladder, and then it comes out of string cheese or spaghetti, or you put the different... Not anything like a BB gun, but the idea of being able to have a present later in the day when you thought all your presents were open, and there's still one hidden away is just a marvelous, brilliant bit of parenting there. So, but I think Darren hits all the right moves, and all his stuff, his ad-libbing of the swears down in the basement, him battling the car, having to come in and like in every morning thing, he's got to get the hot water to like defrost the car and all these things with the bumpers and dogs and, bumpers, friends, like all his little antics and, then timing himself about getting the spare on or having to go haggle with the tree guy about how much it's going to be. A lot of this stuff that an actor of lesser caliber might not have been able to invent, all these little moments and nuances and flourishes that I think Darren just really hits him out of the park, even with the lamp and everything like that. And you feel, like we said earlier, like I think it's more of him having the achievement of the lamp than it being the erotic lamp it is. It's just, shit, this is what it happened to be, and he didn't know what it was going to be either. Yeah. He thought it could have been a deed to a bowling alley.
Yeah,
but once
when he opens up the crate, he's like, anything could be in there.
Yeah, he doesn't know. He jumps in and he's pulling it out, and it's like, and then he gets in, he's like, So I think it's unfortunate for him as well that he has this conflict, but he will never give up because it's the first thing he's been awarded.
Major prize. I think
yeah. So when Mom breaks, he goes outside and we have the cameo of Bob Clark is outside as the neighbor that's like, what is that? It's a lamp? What? How did you want it? He won a lamp? That's Bob Clark, the director.
It's a major prize. He won a major prize.
Yeah, he ran a major prize. And the cars are slowing down, and it's so embarrassing for Melinda Dillon that later on in the movie when she breaks it, you feel he's like, you used all the glue. And then he's like, not a finger. And he goes out and gets it. And then him trying to glue it back, and the fish nets are all broken. You think he has it, and he just crumples, and he's like, and he holds it, and he doesn't say anything. It's such brilliant acting by Darren McGavin. And they say he went and taps were played in the back at night when he went and buried it in the backyard. It's sad. But yeah, God bless Darren McGavin. We love him. Sorry, Melinda Dillon.
I think she's also. I think she's kind of.
She's brilliant in this.
Yeah, I think she's kind of like the comes in under the radar, but I think she's great. I mean, I think the very telling. All this stuff with them, I could totally relate to kind of a overbearing mother when she's putting the brother in the suit and the scarf and everything. But there's a brilliant moment that's very subtle, which is when Ralphie beats up he's going apeshit on the bully, and his little brother goes
Vargas,
and his little brother goes and gets the mom, and the mom comes, and she comes up, and everybody thinks that the mom's going to be angry at him, but she comes and she never even once looks at Vargas. Her eyes are on Ralphie the entire time, and she's like, it's okay, and she takes it. It's a very loving moment for that character. And then she takes him home and like puts the water on his face, like, calm down. It's a very like she's, like I said, she's not angry at him. She comes to his aid, and
she doesn't rat him out.
And she's to the dad. And her eyes are fixated on him from the minute she walks into that shot. She never once looks at the guy that he's beating. Nowadays, it would be like a totally different scenario. But in that moment, she's coming to the aid of her son. She's like Mama Bear,
Oof.
goes into action. It's a great
Nowadays,
moment.
you'd have the mother beat up the kid.
But she's great. She's great.
Well, she's very. I think she's very attractive. So, like, I think she's very beautiful as the mother, and she has all these characteristics that like adorn her. She has this love, this warmth. She's cute. She has the mother sensibility. It's all this stuff you want in an actress, and a particular mother character like this to be able to embody, to get the kids to get their way. She realizes that dad's getting pissed off at the dinner table. She doesn't want another fight to happen. So how does she get the little Randy to eat, do the pig thing? And, it's like all these little ways she gets around getting things done, or having them, putting him in the suit, how much she loves these two kids, or she's at home doing things or cooking, and how smart she is, she knows Victor is like the Trigger's brother's horse's name, and how she changes the conversation when she says about the sports, about, oh, Ralphie got into a fight, and then she's like, no, well, how are the Bears doing? And he's like, they might be called the Chipmunk. It's like all that averting, and it's all done very purposefully.
But yeah, it's a beautifully written character, and beautifully played by Melinda Dillon. One of her, her moments at the end of the movie, Bob Clark had a thing where he would often tell the kids, like, just be natural. Like, he was very going for like a very natural thing. And part of his direction would be to have the first time the actors would see something be while they were rolling. So like the first time Ralphie sees the character, Peter Billingsley sees the actor who plays Ralphie sees the lamp is in that shot, so we see that Melinda Dillon towards the end of the movie, when they go to the Chinese restaurant, she's hysterical. She's laughing at the singers. She's laughing at the duck. She gets startled because all that was, they didn't rehearse any of that. She was in that moment, and all those reactions in the Chinese restaurant are Melinda Dillon's reactions to the things that's going on. She's laughing at those actors playing Chinese waiters, singing the carols. She's startled by the duck. She's genuinely startled when he just chops the duck's head off, because she wasn't expecting that.
And they play that whole scene, with this long lens from across the street.
Yeah.
Like, you're not intruding. It's almost like you're the spectator going by on Christmas, and they play, what is it? I think it's one take too. It might just be a zoom in.
But yeah, it's a great moment, kind of a great finale for the movie. It's a great moment for the dad, who's been looking forward to this turkey the entire, day. She's known, nationwide for being a turkey lover, but he's a guy who, makes the best of a bad situation. And when it's all said and done, he's like, okay, get dressed. We're going out.
Yeah. He diverts a disaster. He knows mother's crushed because she's been working on this food. He's, the kitchen is a disaster. He could flip out and start screaming and yelling and get mad at the family, or go across and do something bad to the dogs or whatever, or yell at the bumpers and the neighbors. But he's like, you know what? Put on your coats and we are going out. And he knows what's the only place that's going to be open on Christmas. He goes to the Chinese restaurant.
I go and they have a Chinese turkey.
Yeah, it is the greatest thing in the world. Like, and it's like, deck the hall, and they can't say it right, and then the other guy's trying to explain it to him, and that's become a classic on its own.
But as we should probably wrap it up. But I think it's worth noting that the kids are great in this movie too. Like kids can easily be annoying, and the casting of the wrong kid or an annoying kid in a movie can be the death nail of a TV show, or especially a movie. And all the kids, all the friends, Peter Billingsley,
Flick, who ends up being in the toy as well,
played by Squat Schwartz, and then Schwartz, who's played by R.D. Robb. It's all great natural performances. Like, you buy them as friends, and I think that's part of. They said that was part of Bob Clark. He wanted them to hang out. They basically were on the shooting of this movie. They lived in a hotel, and so they hung out together. They played video games at the hotel together. They wanted them to be kids. He left them rooms to be kids, even though Scott Schwartz and R.D. Robb weren't in the department store scene. The hotel was connected to the department store, so he brought them over so that they could play on the slide, you know?
Yeah.
So it was important for the kids to be kids, but they also kind of he kind of separated them from Zach Ward, who played Scott Fargus. Like, he didn't want them to interact with the bully because
which is a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't want them to be friends with the actor that played the bully.
Because he wanted them to be upset or kind of have this fear of him.
Genuinely uncomfortable and kind of scared by him. And again, he's brilliant casting too. Like, you look at that kid and he's scary looking.
Yeah, I mean, and he was older looking, and then his minion, the kid next to him with giving him that little hat and the leather jacket. I mean, that's totally out of a Bruiser, out of like the Bowery Boys or the Dead End Kids kind of a look of those with the fingerless gloves and everything. And that whole sequence. The department store sequence, I think, is just so brilliant. I mean, I remember when I was little going to see Santa at a Macy's at the Chapel Square Mall in New Haven and getting on his lap and asking him for Transformers. Can I have Starscream? And the guy had no fucking clue probably what I'm talking about, But like the whole idea of getting in the line, and then you get Gene Shepard, who's a cameo there, where he's like, "This isn't the end. This isn't the beginning of the line. The line ends here. It begins that way." And you have to get all the way down. And then the annoying kid who's like, "I like the Scarecrow." Like, I love that kid. I like the Wizard of Oz. And that kind of dates the movie because people are always trying to say, like, when does this movie take place? Because the Bing Crosby movie, Santa's Coming into Town, with, I think, the Andrews sisters, or that's Jingle Bells that they're playing Christmas morning. Something comes out in 1943, but... Wizard of Oz is 1939, so this would be the summer of 1940. I'm sorry, the Christmas of 1940, and the Dakota ring that he's talking about that he gets from Ovaltine, which is another harrowing thing too, because I remember it being such suspense of what he's gonna in the bathroom, and then it's like, oh, it's just a crummy commercial of the Ovaltine. That was the 1940 edition of the Dakota you get. So. All that stuff is genius, and him waiting in line to go see Santa at an old-fashioned department store that we grew up going to, those things like those Macy's or those whatever you call those ones back then, the Woolworths or whatever, and seeing Santa. And I always, even when I was little, thinking of like how mean the elves were. Like, come on, it's gonna close, and Santa being really freaky.
I think for a lot,
they do that all on purpose,
I think for a lot of kids, the whole Santa experience is kind of traumatic. I know, like, all the earliest photos of me up until a certain age, certainly not by Ralphie's age, but maybe by the little brother's age, like, every photo of me with Santa up to a certain age is like, I'm crying.
Yeah.
Like, it was scary. You don't know who this kid, like, yeah, he's Santa, but he's, so I think it captures the potential traumatic.
Well, I think they do that, right? That's why they shoot it. They shoot a POV of it. They shoot it with like a fisheye lens.
Yeah.
They shoot it all where, you coming up, and they keep the shot in its entirety of you being physically turned around on his lap and sat, so it's like you get the whole panoramic three. I mean, you even see, it goes too quickly, but you could see the lights in frame, the big spotlights of when they and then they sit him down, and he's like, "What would you like for?" And the guy looks like he's had a bunch to drink, and you hear his asides like, if he Mister thinks I'm staying one past 9 o'clock, he's got another thing coming. It's very much you're getting the adult versions a lot of this stuff too, which is, I think, amazing. So that whole sequence is, and then even the slide, I think it's so cool that they had a slide like that. He gets down, and then when Darren McGavin comes up, did he ask you if you were good or not? He's like, no. He's like, oh, don't worry, he knows. It's like, the guy, of course the guy didn't ask him anything, like that.
Yeah. Well, that's another great moment for Darren McGavin. Like, there's just these like little moments that show his connection to the boys.
Yeah. Can we go? And he's like, shut up, Ralph. It's like he's like a dad, it's like he's so much like a father, it's so funny. Or the scene when he swears, he says fudge, and then he's so shocked, he tells the mom, and the mom screams. Melinda Dillon screams like his brother, his son had shot a kid, and she goes home, and the whole phone conversation, she calls up Flick, and then you hear him like almost being beat to death, and the soap when I was very little, I don't know how old, I must have been like 2 or 3. I remember my mom giving me a couple times soap, as maybe if I was swearing, she'd give me soap in the mouth. It didn't last very long because I don't remember it happening much past being 4, 5, or 6, but it was disgusting getting soap in your mouth. That said, it wasn't that red soap. I don't know what the hell that is. It was like a bar of soap, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible getting soap in your mouth.
Anyway, we could talk about this movie for another 2 hours.
Yeah. Now, have you seen this? I don't remember ever seeing the sequel, the one that came out in 2002 or so.
No, I didn't see it.
I didn't see that
I
one.
also didn't even know about my summer story.
Yeah, I heard about it over the years, but
researching
I've never
this.
seen those.
So in the 90s, Bob Clark and Gene Shepard teamed up again
Yeah.
and did another story where about Ralphie, and it's about the summer. I think it's maybe about the following summer or something. I mean, Ralph's played by a young Kieran Culkin, maybe, so he's still young in it. It's not his teenage years, which I think is the sequel that you're talking about is like 5 years later. So
With what's his name in it? From Wonder Years and Home Alone.
yeah,
And
Daniel
Chud.
Stern.
Yeah, Daniel Stern plays the old man in that.
And in my summer story, Charles Grodin plays the old man. And
That's interesting.
Mary Steenburgen plays the mom, and it's narrated by Gene Shepard. I've heard word that they at some point had a falling out, Bob and Gene.
Oh, they had problems on set, I heard, because even though Bob was the director, Gene would go tell the actors how to play the scene, and then Clark, as close as they were with collaborators, he didn't like that. He's like, you can't be giving them.
It's like, leave my actors alone.
Yeah. And then prior to even doing this 83 movie, there was PBS specials, and they had, in 1976 and in 78, PBS had The Phantom of the Open Hearth, part of an anthology called Visions, and then in 82, which is the year before this, they had The Great American 4th of July and Other Disasters, which I think you referenced, and that was from an anthology series called American Playhouse. And in both those versions, in 1976 and 82, James Broderick plays the old man, and in the 82 movie, a young Matt Dillon plays Ralphie.
Interesting.
So that would be cool to see, and those are previous to the 83 Christmas Story we're talking about now. So, a lot of this stuff has been in the zeitgeist for quite a while. I hadn't seen the sequels like you talked about, or the prequels that we've talked about, and then I did see most recently the last year's one.
Yeah.
Which we think we both talked about when we saw it.
Yeah.
Because we kind of both enjoyed it for what it was.
I thought it, and I remember thinking it ended. I felt like it ended strong because it was the ending is more about the old man. But
and I was very worried because I was like, coming to it, I was going to be pissed. I was going to be like, well, how the hell are they going to do this movie with the elephant in the room of, are they going to recast Darren McGavin, or how are they going to do that? So I think they handled it very well in the first 5 minutes. Darren McGavin's character's just died. It takes place in the 1970s. And the whole impetus is going there and having to deal with all that. So I thought that was great. You're throwing the first thing out there with you, getting it over with. And it's just a shame Melinda Dillon wasn't in it.
Yeah, but she ended up dying shortly after that. So she must have been ill.
Yeah, that's what I think it was, because she had retired from acting, and they tried to get her to come back to do this, and she didn't want to. So I don't know if it was a situation of she didn't want to because she'd retired and maybe she didn't think she could do it, or she didn't look the best, or two, if she was sick. Because, like you said, within like 2 or 3 months of this getting a theatrical release or coming out on HBO Max, she passed away.
Yeah.
Which is very sad. So, but I did like, they did dedicate the movie to Darren McGavin, which was nice.
Did they? Because I remember thinking that they didn't.
I saw that there's a dedication, it says.
Because I remember thinking, like, how could they not dedicate it to Bob Clark?
Yeah, well, maybe they should have dedicated it to both of them,
Yeah.
but I think they dedicated it to Darren McGavin. And we never know what Darren McGavin's name is, but astute people looked at the Western Union Telegram and in the shooting script, and they say his first name is Frank. So the old man's name is Frank Parker.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I heard that, and this is completely like hearsay or whatever, that when all was said and done, going forward, Bob Clark owned the Parkers and Ralphie up to a certain age. And then Gene Shepard owned like the teenage years.
Well, that's interesting.
Which might have been why, I don't know, maybe they didn't need Bob Clark to do the sequel because he didn't own Ralphie at that age. He owned Ralphie as like a kid, and Gene Shepard owned Ralphie as a teenager to adulthood.
But would have Bob Clark been even interested, I wonder?
I don't know.
At that point in his career, what he's doing, or, because, again...
He he might have passed away by the time they made that sequel.
Well, the other one, yeah, I know one of them was 2002 or 2007. I don't remember when the other ones hit, or if he'd be interested in, because it would be a straight-to-video sequel, and, Darren McGavin was pretty old at that time, for him to be able to participate, and... I don't, again, because I don't remember how successful this was. I mean, they say it was a financial hit, but when I was growing up, this was just something that was on all the time. Like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory to me was on at Thanksgiving, and then this would be on at Christmas time, along with all the other Christmas stuff.
I think it was relatively well reviewed.
Yeah.
And it made a profit.
Yeah.
I think it was a bit of a sleeper hit. I don't think anybody expected it to do well, but it did better than people expected it to. But it's one of those movies that grew over time, like A Wonderful Life,
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life, which was like not a Christmas movie when it came out, and it was through television airings and everything that became one of the most beloved movies of all time. This was one of those scenarios, but it kind of came out. I mean, you think about 1983. I mean, we're coming out, past the year of 82 movies, and then the sandwich between the year of 82 and 84, which are such big 80s movies. And then it's this weird nostalgic movie for the 40s. Like, it probably slipped in under the radar, but I think it did relatively well. But it was one of those movies who grew an audience over decades of television and home
by
releases.
just getting the crap played out of it. That certainly helped it. I think if it wasn't, kind of just... slapped on TV all the darn time, maybe it wouldn't have the impact it has now, because I see like stuff like Elf is now coming to replace it. Elf to me feels like it came out like last year and it's already 20 years ago, and they're already talking about remaking it.
Yeah.
And this movie had 2012, they did like a musical of it on Broadway, and then that even translated to them doing like a live musical version, which I missed when it came on Fox. I think Fox aired it.
Yeah.
And I thought, so the one from last year I thought was pretty good. The one last year, as in the sequel that came out of them growing up with Peter Billingsley and everyone who could have really reprised their characters, of all the characters, Randy and Flick, and Vargas is coming back as he's the cop now of the town. And I thought it's just a shame Melinda Dillon didn't participate and she passed away. And I remember, if I was watching the credits correctly, they shot it like in Prague or someplace crazy, because
they shoot a lot of stuff.
Like they set the town up, like the street in the town, and they, and because it was cold or whatever, they shot it over there. But I remember enjoying it for what it was, and so I don't know, Red Ryder BB guns, that's awesome, and now it makes me want a left-handed Red Ryder because I'm left-handed like Ralphie, so I need to get one with a compass on the side and all that stuff.
Also, it's largely thought that this movie was shot in Cleveland, and some of it was, but it was also. A lot of it was shot in Canada too.
Yeah, in Ontario with the streetcars and trolley cars. Yeah.
So, again, this is probably a movie that we could dissect even more, but
it takes place in Indiana. Yeah. And what else? Is there anything else to that we're skipping? Flagpole scene was always classic when I was little. And then just the narration, all his stuff, he always had such a great narrating voice, Gene Shepard. So it was.
The narration is interesting because it's also, it's looking back. It's looking back, telling a story, but at the same time, in the scenes, it's sometimes within the scene. Like the voiceover takes like two different tenses, past tense and present tense.
It's what's happening in the moment, or years later I would remember, and then it's different too from Daniel Stern doing the Wonder Years, because to me that was somebody like our age doing the Wonder Years, or like it was an internal monologue where I wouldn't really look at it identifying age, where contrasting to Gene Shepard, when I hear his warm fuzzy voice of A Christmas Story, it to me reminds me of like a grandfather, or an older man thinking of the younger years, and so every time I listen to it, I got warm and fuzzy feelings of that era because I felt like it was his voice was so soothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of like, and it was like him in the 1980s thinking about his life in the 40s growing up, if that makes sense. So definitely I would, if anybody, I know probably everybody downloading this has seen this movie, so I don't think we need to go tell people to go see this, but I certainly think people should go seek out some of other Bob Clark's discography or filmography, certainly like Black Christmas or Murder by Decree, if people haven't seen that. And certainly Darren McGavin, since we're here. You got to go see any Darren McGavin and Melinda Dillon and Gene Shepard. Check out, I wonder if you can find those PBS other things,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
Those would be fun.
Like I said, at the very least, you can listen to some of his old radio broadcasts, even telling these stories.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
On YouTube.
Yeah. And he ended up passing away. I think it was in 2002 or so, or I forget what year they say he passed away. Poor son of a gun. But yeah, you have anything else? 1999. He died in 1921 to 1999. Nice life. You have anything else to say about the movie or anything?
I don't think so.
It's cool if you go to Cleveland, somebody's bought the house and has redone the house, so the house looks like it did for when they shot it with the painting and stuff. And then even though the interiors were shot on sound stages, they spent the money and redid the inside of the house to look like the interior of the house. And then they bought the house across the street, and that's the gift shop and museum or something. But I don't know, because when I was in Cleveland, it had some pretty dodgy neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the neighborhood is. If it's like downtown New Haven, let's hopefully they're keeping it in a bubble, so to speak, because you don't want people like ODing on fentanyl right next door to the Christmas tree store house, But anyway, so any recommendations, thoughts, comments, concerns there, Dr. Blake?
Just if you haven't seen it in a while, I recommend giving it a watch again from the start. I think if you're anything like me, I hadn't seen it in its entirety in decades. And now as an adult who spends a lot of his time being nostalgic for my childhood,
Yeah.
This movie kind of hit me in a way that, in a nice sweet spot that it hadn't in previous years.
That's why you put your hand on my thigh. I was like, oh, Blake, that's nice.
Yeah. That and other reasons.
Yeah, I always enjoyed this movie, and like I said, full disclosure, I tried to really put it down for a couple years because I got kind of annoyed at the popularity of it because it was everywhere. You couldn't turn on the TV at Christmas time without seeing it. Then, as well as back when you used to still channel surf, I would catch the movie at different points all day long. I'd watch the movie in 15-minute bundles because it was playing so much. So that kind of annoyed me, so I stopped watching it. But then introducing it to my wife and then her glee for it, watching it with the newfound kind of admiration because she hadn't grown up with it, kind of reinvigorated my enthusiasm in it. So I kind of got back into it. And then us watching this 4K 4-day print of the, it's nice to see this stuff being remastered and redone and stuff. And I'd like to seek out now that deleted scene of the Flash Gordon bit because I'm a big, I like for my radio plays and radio shows and Flash Gordon stuff. So that'd be cool to find.
I will just say as we close out, interesting, the score is by Paul Zaza and Carl Zitterer. I can never pronounce his name. But these are the guys who Carl Zitterer, he scored Black Christmas, and Paul Zaza scored. He did Porky's, but he also did Prom Night, Murder by Decree, My Bloody Valentine. So there's a lot of horror movie roots.
Yeah.
Even though the music's not scary, I just thought it was interesting seeing those two names because I know those names from horror movie scores.
The music almost seems like it was done almost before the stuff was shot because some of the stuff seems kind of like, like the whole the music cues around like him in school or him around the fire the flagpole almost seem like, do 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 do. It's kind of like it could fit anywhere,
Yeah.
which is kind of interesting.
Anyway, it is
Getting late.
It's getting those early, those wee hours of the morning.
On the wee hour, in the wee small hours of the morning. I love those JIL and GLDBD bells. Yeah. All right. So we'll hope to see you in the new year, or hear from us in the new year, in bright old 2024. We'll be talking about all of our big projects and stuff that we'll be doing. We hope you have a great Christmas season and holiday. And as we always like to say, go back and listen to our prior catalog. We've got some great Christmas we did last year was the Muppet Family Christmas, which was actually one of my favorite films of all time. We did Emmett Otter Jug Band the year before that. We did Santa Claus the movie. We did The Night They Saved Christmas. Remember that surprise with Paul Williams, Art Carney, and we've done like we said, Black Christmas. We've done Gremlins,
Die Hard,
Lethal Weapon. Have we done National Lampoon's Christmas?
We did do
Vacation.
National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
We did that. We did Invasion USA, another a little known Christmas movie.
I was thinking that when Thanksgiving rolled around, that we should have been promoting the fact that we have a few
sturdy list of
Dutch planes, trains, and automobiles. We have a few Thanksgiving
movies. Yeah, we haven't done March of the Wooden Soldiers yet, which is always played on Thanksgiving, but we've done very centric Thanksgiving movies. And maybe we should put out a little posting about all the Christmas movies we have so that people know. I feel like we've done more too than that, but
we've done at least 2 a year for,
except for the first year, so we did Ernest Saves Christmas. Ernest P. Worrell. And what else? I feel like we've done a couple more. But we've certainly gotten around to a lot of stuff. Like you said, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon. We've done horror movies. We've done comedies. We've done family-friendly movies. We've done puppet movies. We've done animated movies. We've done forgotten movies. We've done it all, baby. So have a look back if you're in the season. And I know a lot of people, a lot of the things Blake and I hear is that a lot of our listeners like to go back and re-listen to some of the catalog. So if you're that kind of, if you like to digest your entertainment in that way, we'd like to remind you to go back and listen to some of our Christmases of yesteryear, the Ghosts of Christmas Past, because we've done a lot of good fun stuff that we've enjoyed. So Blake, what are you up to these days while your Christmas season goes?
I don't know. Same old.
Same with me.
I'm looking for a job is what I'm doing right now. But
I'm looking for purpose.
I haven't had a paycheck since July, so things are getting a little tight in the belt this year.
Oh gosh!
But
I hope it's not that dire.
We'll talk about it another time. But I don't want to bring down the holiday cheer. If
you see Blake outside of a Walgreens looking, please fill his can up, or is the Santa Claus the ding ding?
Just
ding.
This holiday spirit, I just want to say thank you to the people that listen and continue to listen. We don't do the show a whole lot anymore, and I can't speak for Dion, but for me, at this point, I do the show because you guys ask us to, which is nice.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I do it for twofold. I do it to hang out with Blake, and I do it because it's nice to think or know that there are people out here that enjoy us putting this labor into it.
I'm not sure why they enjoy it, but I appreciate it. And
then it was almost like me relating to Blake before this podcast. I was listening to somebody else's podcast because I don't listen to podcasts. And I went on YouTube to listen to somebody talking about something, and I was like, gosh, when are they going to talk about the movie or the show? And then I realized I'm actually laying critiques down to what we do all the time. Yes. So, boy, wasn't that hypocritical of me. So now I see why when we get those comments like, these fuckers aren't an hour and they're not even talking about the movie. Well, I guess I can see what you're talking about. Yes. So I'd like to thank everybody for putting up with us, or putting up with me in particular in my rambling stories that, go around the houses a little bit, as they say, or on the cul-de-sac and into the weeds. And our car gets stuck in neutral.
But because we missed Thanksgiving, I just want to give my thanks to you, the listener, for putting up with us, listening to the show, communicating with us on social media. It's always nice because when we do this, we feel like we do it in a vacuum, but it's nice to get some feedback. And like I said, at this point, I think we mostly do it for you guys.
Yeah.
It's nice to see Dion, but I can see Dion outside of the basement.
I know, but it's special because since my parents don't let me leave the basement all that very often, and on top of that, I am handcuffed to the radiator. It is nice to get visitors down to the basement, and Blake's the only one that they allow down to the basement.
Yes, I'm the only one allowed.
And all I've got
VIP
down
access.
here is a Nintendo and Atari, a VHS player with 5 VHS tapes, and the only Nintendo games I have is freaking Jaws, Friday the 13th, all these terrible role-playing video. It's like, how are you going to make a Nintendo game of Friday the 13th and all you do is just walk around from one, camp room to another, or Jaws where you're just looking for the shark. You know what I mean? It's like, so anyway. That's even if the Nintendo's working.
Anyway.
Yeah, but we digress.
Dion and I both have books out. Scored to Death, Conversations with Some of Horror's Greatest Composers, and Scored to Death 2, more conversations with some of Horror's Greatest Composers, and Dion's books, Blood in the Streets, and what's the name of the other one?
Morris P.I., The Men from Ice House 4. And we like to say, if you'd love to support us or throw us some money, buy our books.
They make great holiday gifts.
Yeah, and if you want, you can even message us directly, and if you want them signed, Blake has a site that does that, or you can just message me, and we can work out something where I can send it to you, and we can get those suckers signed before the holiday season, if that's what you want to do. Make it a stocking stuffer.
And as usual, you can follow us at Sat Sleepovers on social media, or for me at Scored to Death on social media, and Dion has a couple of different social media sites. Dion, if you want to let us know what those are.
I got my OnlyFans page. I've got my no, I don't have an OnlyFans page. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, X, and that's really it. I don't do TikTok. And you can find me, search Dion Baya, or I have an author page too. You can find stuff about my books. And like Blake said, Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers is on Instagram, it's on Twitter, and it's on Facebook. And, you can engage us, talk to us, and leave comments and stuff like that. Let us know what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're liking, what you're not liking, what you're listening to, all kinds of stuff. We love to engage the audience. And again, like to reiterate what Blake says, I like to thank the audience as well for people who are, reaching out and talking to us and having this dialogue between us and telling us that you care to listen to the cast. It's very nice in this Christmas season of this crazy world we're living in that seems to be getting crazier every day. It's nice to know that we're able to stop down and celebrate and enjoy this collective childhood we have, and we're two guys like Blake and I can come and really talk about nothing for 3 hours. Can generate some sort of
messages, a lot of messages that imply that we help people out of a tough situation or time in their life.
Yeah.
Are not infrequent for us. So it makes us feel good to know that I think of the people that listen to the Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers. We're a Saturday Night Movie Sleepovers family, and I'm happy that Dion and I, even if it's in our most idiotic and goofy ways, can help out. It makes us feel good. So thank you so much for letting us know and for listening.
Wouldn't it be cool if we could somehow, we talked about this before, but wouldn't it be cool if somehow we can get everybody together for a sleepover? And I mean, like,
yeah.
Metaphorically, I meant like
about,
everybody.
Like, there was that Airbnb that was a Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And we talked about renting out the Blockbuster for an Airbnb and having a giant sleepover.
Yeah, everyone brings cots and like, either blow up mattresses or like their sleeping bags, which would get weird because I don't know if that impedes on any kind of like, fire codes, but. Yeah. I meant like even like if we were to do some sort of event somewhere, that'd be cool if we were. I don't know. I don't think we'd get enough people to in a specific city unless we did a tour.
I still think Portland is our one.
Yeah, we used to get a lot of people.
We used to have a lot of listeners in Portland.
Yeah,
and Croatia. We are huge in Croatia. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But when you
And
look
if we
at
went
when you
around-
look at the stats, we're consistently in like the top podcasts of Croatia.
Yeah, Croatia, which is cool. I mean, that's nice to know people are into that kind of. They speak English and they listen to us. And even if we did some sort of touring circuit, I don't even think us playing like small theaters would work. We'd have to play like coffee houses.
Yeah,
you know,
we
we'd be
would.
playing like
We'd
at a Starbucks if they put a stage up. We're there.
Outside the Starbucks.
Yeah, we're
on the
there,
street.
like, you know, next to the guy with for the Salvation Army. So, all right. Hope everybody has a nice Christmas. We may be seeing you guys or hearing from you guys really soon, or you may be hearing from us very soon. And we hope you have a great holiday season. And we'll see you very, very sooner than later.
Later.
Dion and Blake every Saturday night. Popcorn's popping, the pizza's in sight. Movie marathons till the morning light. Just friends watching movies on a Saturday night. They have been pals since in their teens, with Mega Jolt Cola fueling their dreams, watching childhood favorites on the TV screen, talking endlessly about their favorite scenes. Lights go dim, the screen comes alive. In Dion and Blake's world, nostalgia thrives. Buckets of pizza and endless high fives. Saturday night movie sleepovers are where friendships survive. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Action flicks. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Horror films. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Goodies. Saturday night movie sleepovers. Erotic thrillers. Saturday sleepovers. Sci-fi. Saturday night movie sleepovers are where friendships survive.